All right, we're right here at 1 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get everything kicked off. We want to welcome everybody here to our spring Sage Intacct user group. I do want to note we will be having 2 user groups this year. Previously, we were having one in the fall. We'll be having one today, and then also one in the September-October timeframe. So keep an eye on your emails and get ready to mark your calendars. If anybody is having any issues with audio or video, you'll notice at the bottom of the slide there on the screen, contact Leah Peters at her phone number, and she'll be able to help you out. Many of you may be familiar with GoToWebinar who have attended with us in the past, but if you're not, we will be handling questions via the chat box. So you should see a little pane similar to what's on the screen here. And you can type those questions in the chat box. And depending on how we're doing on time, we'll circle back and answer those on the live webinar. If we don't get to all of them, we'll be sure to follow up and make sure everybody's question gets answered. We've got a full plate today. We're going to cover the items there on your screen, starting off with the 2025 release updates. From there, we're going to go into imports, supplies inventory, order entry, and AR, AP. And then the 3 bottom items, those are going to be third-party or marketplace partners. And so DataBlend's going to be our first one, then Ramp, and then Martis to round out the day. So if you haven't heard of those 3, you'll get plenty of information this afternoon and see how much value each of those can provide to you and Sage Intacct. Before we get started in the software, a few housekeeping items, introductions. Many of you are probably familiar with one or a few faces, but this is our entire Intacct team here. And everybody but Adam will be presenting today. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Adam. He's the Sage Intacct practice leader. But in addition to myself, Luke Lothamer, we also will have Logan Lemon, Brad Prather, Nathan Lichty, and Cassie Rock presenting today. For those of you who might not be familiar with DWD Technology Group, we are a part of the firm Doolan Ward & Dewall, and we were established in 1939, located in the northeast corner of Indiana, and have right around 90 staff. We consist mostly of software consultants and network engineers. Quite a few of our software consultants are also CPAs, and we all also have been nominated for a variety of software awards. I do want to continue to bring this up. We might have mentioned this in the fall. One thing for all of you to keep in mind as your teams are growing, or maybe you have some turnover and users tend to bring change, keep in mind that if you need to make changes to your user count, such as adding a new user or making someone inactive and then creating a new one, it's best to always reach out to us or someone on our team. But if you do happen to make the change yourself, keep in mind this little message that pops up here when you do create a new user. It does mention that you will be charged or could be charged by adding this user. So again, like the message says to the right, how does this affect you? I would always reach out to us, and we'll always be honest or open with your user count, provide your exact number, and then if you need to add somebody or a specific business user type, we will let you know. One other change I'm going to mention here as we get kicked off, if you have a custom email domain that you use, such as ours might be dwdtechgroup.com, and you want emails from the software to continue to come from that email domain and not the generic Sage domain, you want to make sure that you make the necessary changes in the software. They are moving to a new email delivery service. So it's going to require a few authentication and validation steps to take place. And I'm going to go through that here as we get started in the software. I'll show you where that can be done. Now, if you don't care whether or not it comes from a generic Sage email address or your actual domain, maybe it's not a big deal. But I will say if you are using your domain, you'll want to make sure it's validated by August 2025 this year. Otherwise, you might have some emails that don't get sent, or maybe they error and don't get delivered to the party you're trying to send them to. Software solutions that we offer, we are primarily a Sage house here, so you'll see Sage Intacct, Sage 100, BusinessWorks. We do work with MIP fund accounting as well, Sage 50, and Sage FAS or fixed assets. We do offer network services, so if you're ever in need of managed IT security plans, data backup services, anything Microsoft Office 365, or managed IT services, we can certainly be of assistance. So please reach out if any of those might apply to you. All right, we're going to take a look at the 2025 release updates, and I'm going to jump over to the software at this point. You can follow along as we go through the presentation today via the slides on one screen if you happen to have multiple, and then I'll bring the software up here on my other screen. All right. And we're going to start by, if you're new to Sage Intacct, maybe you just implemented or are still getting familiar with it, I'll point out right when you log in, if your screen looks like this, you can always see the latest releases right here. So you can click read the release notes, and that's going to take you to a more detailed, informative section where it shows you everything that they've added. And I like to look at this view too, 2025 release calendar. This tells you exactly when they're going to release new features. So they've already had 2 this year, 1 in February, 1 in May. And I'm going to go through a combination of features that may apply to the majority of you. However, as you can see when I click down through here at the different options, even just financials, you can see there's many different options and changes that they've made. So I would encourage all of you to come out here and take a peek at what they've added as of May 9th. So the first one I'm going to jump into is issue checks to joint payees. So this is a new feature that wasn't offered previously. The first thing you'll want to do, if this might apply to you, this would be the case where you might have vendors that subcontract out portions of their work. So you might pay the vendor directly for certain things, and then maybe you have to pay the subcontractor as well, but you want to have 2 separate checks. So first thing, you want to go to your AP configuration. Maybe not all of you have the ability to view this area, but you'll have to request that this gets added. So I'm going to scroll down here, and you're going to see a checkbox right here titled Enable Joint Checks. You want to make sure that that is enabled first and saved. Next, what that's going to do is when you come out here to enter your bills, I'm going to pick an existing one here. Let's go ahead and select this one. You'll see a new tab at the top titled Joint Payees. And so I'm going to select that. And you can add however many joint payees you might have for this one bill. So in my case, I said, all right, this is ABC Office Supplies. Joint payee is going to be XYZ Consulting. You can type in what you want to print on that check. So it could be, however you want that to be presented. You have full flexibility to change that. Once that's updated, you'll post your bill just like you normally would, and it's going to go from there to your pay bills screen. And when I come out here, there's going to be a different payment method. So you're going to see joint check listed in this menu here. And now you'll see I just have the one that I made the update to. And when we come out here to pay it, there's going to be one other area you're going to want to visit if you do this. It's going to be the payee details. And that's going to tell you how you want this to be split up. So let's say, for instance, ABC should be charged or paid, not charged, paid $250, and then XYZ is going to be paid $250. We're going to go ahead and save that, and then we'll say pay now. Right, so I might have made it think a little too hard here. Let's see if it went through by chance, and it did. So I tried to do that request again, and the software told me you can't do that because it's already been processed. So when I go out here to the payment requests, you can see the two that are marked as joint check, 250, 250, and then you have your vendor name. It holds the parent, and then you have the joint payee to the right of it. So you can see what they're being paid. From here, there's no difference. So if they're printed a physical check, you would come out here to print checks, or if you needed to process an EFT or Nacha file for electronic payments, nothing would change from that standpoint. So that's the first feature that was added in release 2 of this year. So issuing checks to joint payees. First thing you'll want to do is enable it via the configuration, and then you can walk through those steps in the AP module. All right. Next one is going to be a warning message that pops up when voiding reconciled payments. So many of you, if you finished your bank rec for the month and a check needs to be voided, previously you were not made aware of if it had been reconciled or if it was still outstanding and waiting to be cleared from the bank. What Sage has done, and I'll show you here with an example, I'm going to use posted payments. So they did make a change recently, voiding payments. You can do it right from this screen. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, you used to have to go through the check register and void the payments that way. Now we can just go straight to posted payments here and void from this screen. So I'm going to go ahead and act like I'm going to void one of these payments, one that I know has been reconciled in this demo environment here. And you'll notice this message that pops up. This payment has been reconciled. Do you want to void the payment? Select OK to reverse it or cancel to keep it. So it's letting you know that, hey, you might need to go and reconcile that or reopen your bank rec once you do this step. So that is a message that previously did not pop up or was not out there. Okay, same thing is applicable for the AR side. They did it for AP and AR, but the same concept is if you were going to void something in AR that would affect your cash or bank rec, it's going to give you a warning message if it's already been reconciled. Next area I'm going to go into is vendor-based AP bill approvals. Many of you may or may not have approvals enabled for your AP bills, but first off, you're going to have to go to the Setup tab here within the AP module. And again, if you have the proper permissions, you can go to the configuration. And I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here to our approvals section. Right here, bill approval settings. We're going to go ahead and manage approval policies. And right now I have it set up as a different rule type. But now you'll notice a new option out here, vendor-based approval. So I'm going to go ahead and select that so I can show you what that does. Nothing further from a setup standpoint here. Once I save this, and click Save. And then now we're going to venture to our vendors. And let's go ahead and open one of our vendors out here. This can be found on the additional information tab. And bill approver, this drop-down menu wasn't here previously. But this is going to contain any users in your Sage Intacct environment that have the proper permissions to be an approver. So you can select who you want to approve for this specific vendor. It can also be a group of users. So if you said, in my case, maybe me, Cassie, Brad, and Logan should have the ability to approve for this vendor, but not Nathan, that's a way to include multiple people, but not everybody. So this is a new feature that I think we've seen requested in the past, but it wasn't possible. So now you can elect to have that via the configuration. Let's go back to the configuration, scroll back down. Again, assuming you all had this turned on already, this could be a process change enabling the bill approval in general. So you would have to have that turned on to then have the ability to manage the approval policies beneath that. So that's where you make that change to the vendor-based approval. Okay. All right, up next is going to be approval delegation. Now, I kind of mislead by not including purchasing on that. This would be for purchasing approvals. Any of you who are using the purchasing module, you can come out here to that, and then you'll want to make sure that you have delegations enabled, and that's also going to be under the configuration menu. Similar to AP, I'm going to scroll down here a little ways. And right here within the approval section, you're going to see enable delegation. If that's already enabled for your organization, not much else you have to do there. I might review the delegates that you have so you can see. This is just saying when Carla is out, this user or group of users is going to approve for her. And then likewise, down here for myself, I can't be the approver for myself if it's a delegate, so just keep that in mind as well. The change here that Sage has made is made it a little more flexible. So what I mean by that is if I'm going to be out of the office and I want to turn on the delegation feature, I can come up here to my preferences, and I'm going to scroll down here a little ways. Right here, it shows me approval delegation, shows me purchasing. I can turn that on, and now I can specify the starting date and ending date. So if you're going on vacation, or you know you're going to be out of the office for an extended period of time, you can punch those dates in there, and over the course of that time period, you can have those approvals sent to the delegate here, in this case Carla. Let's say you came back early from vacation or that extended period, you can come out and turn it off, and it's going to flip back to all the approvals going to you. So another good feature that they enhanced in the purchasing area. Okay. All right. Last feature within the AP/purchasing area is going to be prevent direct posting to specified journals. So this previously wasn't an option. I'm going to go out here to the general ledger and look at the journals themselves. So let's say, for instance, you didn't want to have users posting directly to your AP journal or AR journal because those might be tied to the corresponding subledger. That's one way to get your general ledger and your subledgers out of balance. They have made this checkbox here to say disallow direct posting. So you can check that box, and that ensures that nobody can post an entry directly to that journal. It has to go through, in this case, AP. What Sage had previously, and I would encourage all of you to review this as well, within your general ledger account, let's just look at accounts receivable here in our case. You can disallow direct posting to your AR account and your AP account or any other account that might go through a subledger. So that's one way to disallow direct posting and ensure those subledgers and general ledger remain in balance. But now they have also made that update to the journals themselves. So if you don't want anybody posting directly to it, come out here and check this box to disallow the direct posting. All right, so before we jump into the remaining features here that we'll run through, we've got our first poll question of this afternoon. And so since we're talking about AP, I want to know how many of you are currently using an AP automation tool? And you should see options pop up on your screen, and please make your selection. All right, so from the looks of it, looks like we've got 24% of you said yes, we enter through Sage AP automation. 9% said yes, but use a different solution, potentially Ramp, Faulty, Stamply, or another one. 41% no, but we have investigated different options. 26% no, what is AP automation? All right, we really appreciate you participating in that poll. And what I would say from those results, for those of you who don't know what AP automation is, we're going to have a solution later on in our presentation called Ramp. They offer their own AP automation, and then Sage offers an option as well. I would highly encourage any of you who aren't familiar with those, we're happy to help you and provide any information you might want to know about it, such as what it looks like, what it can do, what value it can provide for you and your organization. All right, jumping into the remaining release updates. So the next one I'm going to show you here on my screen is going to be credit card related. So for those of you who might not handle credit cards within the software, this might look a little foreign, but within cash management, you're going to see a section down in the bottom corner titled credit card. So out here, if you post these types of transactions, previously you could not reclassify once they're posted. So if I go ahead and open up this transaction here related to this credit card, I couldn't make any changes once it was processed. So if you happen to input the wrong account or information, it couldn't be changed. So it was kind of locked in there and you had to void it and reprocess it. So it was a little messy. Now they've included this reclassify option. So at the top, you can click that, change your account, reclassify it really easily so that it goes to the right account. What you'll want to do is, if you want to utilize this feature, you'll want to go out to your cash management module. Again, the configuration, make sure you have the right permissions or get the attention of someone who does, and they can come out here and check this box here to enable the reclassification feature. Okay. All right, next up, this feature is a big one, and Sage is going to build upon it in the future, so be on the lookout for many other releases related to this. So they have their own co-pilot. This search help right here, it was an early adopter feature, so some people might have tested it in beta, but it has been released to everybody now, so you can come out here and click search help, and it's going to bring up a chat box. And so you can ask the Copilot many questions, and it'll provide answers. Many of you might be familiar with ChatGPT. So they're looking to build out Copilot in that sense to where you can ask it different questions, and it'll provide answers based on its knowledge and understanding. I might have to refresh here if it doesn't pop up. Try this again here. There we go. So what I wouldn't recommend at this point, again, this is Sage Intacct specific, so you can't ask it things like, how do I make mac and cheese? It's going to say, sorry, I was unable to find any relevant information. So disclaimer, anybody who tries to use this like you might chat GPT, keep it to Sage Intacct related material and it'll help you out quite a bit. So what I would recommend is asking it something like, can I reclassify an AP bill? And it's going to give you this information. So you'll see, yes, you can reclassify an accounts payable bill. And it's going to bring up requirements. It's going to tell you what you can classify, what you cannot classify, and then how to reclassify a bill. It gives you hyperlinks at the bottom with articles or knowledge-based tips on how to do that. So definitely a nice feature. I like what they did with the search help. And again, they're going to keep building on this so that you can ask it questions in the future, such as, who are my top 10 vendors or who are my top 10 customers? And it'll be able to look at the data in your system and pull that information up. So keep an eye out for Sage's Copilot and the improvements it makes. But for now, you can use this help chat to find information that you might need. All right, next up, financial report guidance. This is just a little feature that they added, so I'll show you what financial report guidance it is providing. So when I go out here to this report at the top of my screen, let's preview this. And it might not have done it. So what happens is if you have a report that's rather large, whether too many columns or quite a few columns, I should say, not too many, it's going to bring up a little guidance screenshot and say you might try reducing the number of columns or changing this feature because the report might not run the most efficient based on how you have it. So if I don't get that to pop up, we might have to follow up with that screenshot. But the financial report guidance, they added basically tips to make changes to your reports if they seem to be running slow, and then those tips will help improve that speed and efficiency of your reporting. So that's really the last feature I had to show here, and I know I'm right here at 1:30. The next feature kind of rolls into the next presenter. So the Sage Intacct import service, Sage has made a few changes to how you can import and how it's presented, and Brad is going to show you that new feature next.
Thank you, Luke. All right.
Good.
All right, everybody. Welcome again. I'm going to speak this afternoon on imports. As Luke said, there is some new importing feature. I am going to review both the new import as well as what I will probably refer to as a standard or legacy import so that you can see both of them. But before I get started, I do have a couple poll questions I'd like to ask just to kind of get a feel for if everybody or if anybody's importing, and then another poll question as to what you may or want to import. So, all right, I can see that actually kind of live here, just as that's everybody's recording their responses there. You'll see that in just a minute. Looks like actually we do have a good amount once Sherry closes the poll here.
I'll go ahead and close it and share the results.
Looks like we have almost 80% of the attendees are using imports now. So you're probably familiar with some of the things I'll talk about in that standard. You'll see the differences where you have to wait on getting an email back as to what your error is, and if you have data corrections, and sometimes the process that you have to go through to do that. One more poll question, if you would, Sherry, real quickly here. Again, I'm kind of seeing this, I am seeing this coming in live here. Looks like we got a pretty good split in the poll questions here as to the results.
So the results are up there.
All right, perfect. So it looks like kind of what I expected, a lot of general journal entries, AP bills and AR invoices, and then an other. But here's what I would encourage you to do real quickly on that other is if you, one, maybe want to put that in the chat as to what those other items are that you'd like to import. We can see if the ability exists for those. And if not, just a real quick, I don't know if you're familiar with the Sage Online resources, but there is what's called the Sage Ideas. And one of the things you can do is you can go out there and ideas of what you would like to see added to the program. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. Let's take a look. I got a couple slides here, and then I'm going to go into some demo of the different import options, right? So again, we do have a new import service. Right now, it's currently limited. You'll see the items that it is limited to. So I would say that right now, it's probably going to be the most applicable to any new implementations. So if you're doing a new implementation, this is probably we're going to be making the most use of this right here. I do know that they have some betas out there testing, I believe, for customers and vendors right now. And my guess is they will continue to build this new service out as we get, farther into the time frame here, right? So that the more and more things will be added to the new service to what I would imagine eventually everything will be done that way. I do have no idea what that time frame is, but would anticipate that happening. Here's what's good about this new service, right? It's going to allow you to check your data file before importing. It's going to learn about your data each time you import, making additional imports easier. There's a workspace that remembers the imports you've done. Now the errors at the line and field level are displayed in real time as opposed to the email. And last two items, you can actually map Sage Intacct directly to your data. You no longer have to use their templates where they have the actual column headers, that you have to actually use that template to make sure that you're getting the data in the right place. You can actually now map to whatever data you have, and you can go directly from an Excel spreadsheet, okay? So let's take a look at the new service here. I'm in the company. I'm going to the setup folder, and this is the same as it's always been. I have an import data here. But now I have this link up here in the upper left for the new import service. And you'll also notice I still have all of my previous imports here as well. And we'll look at one of those just so anybody who hasn't done imports before knows how that those work. We get a little understanding of how those work, all right? So I'm going to go into my new import service. I will disclaimer they made to us. Actually, when I did the review of this, when they did their presentation, this can take a little bit of time for whatever reason at this point. That is something that is kind of known. So if it does take a little bit of time to come up, hang in there because it will come up. You can see here's my limits as to what I can import. Like we looked at that slide. This is what it is right now, so to speak. So there's not really anything we can do about that until they continue to add items here. You can, in fact, download a template if you like. Okay, we do have the ability to update these items. I'm going to go into one that I've already created here just for the classes. Very simple import. Okay, I went in here to the create. I mapped my fields to the appropriate, or my data, I should say, from Excel to the appropriate fields in Sage Intacct. One of the nice things about this particular update, or I should say import, I'm sorry, is I can literally take the file and drag and drop it into the right here. Okay, so I'm going to just drag my class file in there. All right, it's going to go through a process of validating. Here's my mapping. All right, you can see where this is my incoming field from my data file. You do need to have column headers in the file that you are importing, but those column headers can say whatever you want them to say. They do not have to be specific like we have to have currently in the other templates. So literally, I have a column called class ID, and I'm mapping it to the class ID field. And then there's the data that I'm going to bring in, a little preview, all right? So that's all mapped correctly. I'm going to continue. It's running my job here. It's doing some validation. And I've got a pretty simple file here. Clearly, if you had a number of records, it's going to take a little bit longer. But I purposely set this up to actually fail on my record so I can show you now what you can do. Okay, so I've got 2 invalid records, and it's literally telling me they're invalid because this field is required. Okay, so now I can go directly into this tool right here and correct my data, type in the appropriate name. Okay, now I have 2 valid records, and I can import. Okay, so you're going to get everything, and that tells me that 2 records were imported successfully. All right, so the advantage to this is a couple things. 1, I could do an Excel file. 2, I can map my data from that data file directly to the Intacct. It does not have to have particular column headers, be in a particular order. And then I'm going to get right here on the screen a review, a validation of that data, which I can change on this screen. Now, I might tell you that, again, I had a very easy one here, very easy to update that. If I was doing this with a much bigger file, and let's say that I had a whole column of data that I forgot to put in there, or there were numerous items that were invalid, I would probably go back to my data file, use the tools in there to say, change this data, you know, where it's this, make it to correct data, right, and then re-import it as opposed to doing it in here. So it's going to be a trade-off, I think, as to where you make those corrections. But for one of those 1 or 2 records that are incorrect, you can certainly do that right here. Okay. Now this exit and delete records, it's not deleting the records from Intacct, it's deleting them from this particular workspace right here that it validated those records. Okay, so when you see that, just go ahead and click on exit and you can get out of there. Okay. Okay, so then we have then the regular. Let's talk just a little bit about then what I'm going to call the standard service, right? As we saw, I'll go back to it here in a minute. There's a list in company setup. Whatever's in that list, that's what we can import. You do have to download the template, and I recommend that if you're doing an import on a regular basis, especially if we get these updates that Luke talked about, sometimes there are changes to data files, and the template has changed. So I recommend that even if you've been doing these imports for a long time, you may want to go out there and download that template again to see if there's any new data. If you add a user-defined field, for example, you want to download that template again. You cannot change the column headers on that template, okay? Most of the imports I've done do allow those columns to be moved around. I do say most, though, because I have run into a couple that did not. I think specifically in bank reconciliation, bank transactions, I think I had some problems with that if those columns weren't in the exact same order. But in general, you can move those columns around. And then row 2 in your file tells you what that field is, the length of the field, the type of field, and whether that is required or not. Okay, so let's get back into the software again, take a look at that again, what I'm going to call that standard import. Okay, I'm going to do just a quick chart of accounts here, but I will open up on my screen here so you can see the difference here for anybody that hasn't imported before. This template I had to download. Okay, you'll notice these column headers here. Those you cannot change because that tells Intacct what the data is that's being imported. Okay, if I look at row 2, then I get some more details. That's my account number. It has a maximum length of 24, valid values, but then you'll notice right here that is a required field. Okay, account name, same thing, required. So row 2 is always going to give you information about that field itself. Okay, so let me close that. The other thing then that you have to do with this standard import is you do have to save this as an Excel, or I'm sorry, a CSV file. Okay, so I'm going to go out here in this particular case. Then I don't drag and drop, but I go out here and I find my file. I say I want to import it. It's a CSV. I do have an option here to process what's called offline, which will, if I have a big file, a lot of times I'll do that. It'll run, and then I'll get the email back as to whether it was successful or not. If I say process offline, I do get kind of a immediate input as to whether my records failed or didn't. Now, I had 2 records that had errors. Again, I did do that on purpose. Okay, so I could show you then what you have to do now, though, is you have to download the error file. Okay, take a look at it, and it will then have all the records that didn't import. Okay, and actually this one doesn't give me the information I need. What'll happen is you'll get an import, or you'll get an email. Okay, and then that email should tell you number of records with import errors, and sometimes you have to scroll down quite a ways. But this is telling me the normal balance can only contain the following values, DB or CR. So I didn't have those valid values in my chart of accounts. So if I open that back up, sure enough, I just had the D and the C in there. So it's either got to be a DB, CR. Now I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that as my CSV. So as you can see, the difference between the two, right? Whereas on the other one, I could have just made this change right there on the screen. I didn't have to resave a file. I didn't have to wait for an error or an email to come in to tell me what the error message was. All those kind of things. You can see it's going to be a lot more efficient once they start adding. Okay, I'll go ahead and save that. And then real quickly, and I will be done, if I go back into my right here, and if I go now into my import into my chart of accounts, now go back and save my corrected file. I'm going to go ahead and say process. I'm sorry, I'm going to leave that unchecked so I can get my immediate results of my import. And then this time it should come back and tell me that 2 records were imported, yep, correctly. And I still get the email telling me that they were imported correctly. Okay. So hopefully that gives you kind of a high-level idea of how to do the imports. I'm excited about the new import service. Hopefully they kind of get, or not kind of, hopefully they start getting more and more of those files out there so we can start doing it through that, as opposed to the current method of the templates. Fill it out, update, or import, get your errors, go back and change, and go through that process until you finally get it imported. So with that, I'm done. We do need to pass this on. However, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and we will circle back to those as we get more toward the end and have some time.
All right. Thank you, Brad.
You're welcome.
We will go ahead and make Nathan our presenter.
All right, should be seeing my screen there.
Very good.
All right, well, I'm Nathan. I'm going to be talking about supplies inventory here. Let's get into that. There. So the supplies inventory that Intacct has implemented helps maintain your consumable items inventory. So that's going to include items that could be internal or specific to programs. It's going to give you a central workbench to streamline your inventory's management. So all the actions that you need to take are reachable through that workbench, and we'll actually see that in a demo here in a couple of minutes. It also helps you maintain optimal inventory levels. So we can set up replenishment levels where orders automatically go out when we reach a certain threshold. We can set up economic order quantities or reserve stock that we withhold. It can also help enhance internal controls and stewardship. So this uses the purchasing module's native approval setup options to flow through in all your workflows through approvals and prevents anyone, say, just coming in and taking supplies from a supply closet without anyone noting where that went to. And then it's also included with the standard inventory management subscription, but it can be its own order available separately if you do not desire to use that full module. All right, and I would like to run a poll here just to get an idea of how many people are using the current inventory module.
All right. And here are our responses.
All right. Yeah, looks like the vast majority there don't currently use inventory control, might not have any desire to use supply inventory. Hopefully, for those of you who aren't familiar with the standard inventory, once we see a little bit more of supplies inventory, you might see some value to it anyway, even though currently you might not think you want to use it. So with that, we can get back on with the slides here. So our use cases for this, kind of people that might desire to use it. So you can see here, organizations who have the best use case for this are those that would need to track internal supplies or supplies that are consumed during operations. Some examples of that would be facility supplies like cleaning products, paper towels, toilet paper, office supplies like your markers, your paper, staples, pens, anything that you might need in a regularly running office, and program supplies. So that can be based on industry standards, industry specific, even just organization specific use cases. So think like medical organizations using gloves or masks for their purposes. It's also a very good fit for anyone who's in healthcare, nonprofit, hospitality, or even just general business. Really, just about everyone uses some form of supply in their day-to-day business. So it's very flexible in its use cases and allows you to apply that to just about any organizational structure. Now, as far as capabilities, we'll see a little bit more of this once we get into the demo. But really from a broad stance, what this does is it supports supplies issuance, purchase order creation, and managing stock between locations, so it allows you to do transfers or requests from multiple locations. And that can all be done from the workbench that we'll see here in a bit. It's slightly different from those of you who are familiar with the standard inventory. It's different from that in that it only supports items that are used internally. So nothing here could be used for sale. It's entirely going to be internally tracking, costing. Only thing we can do with these items is purchase more and use them. We cannot sell them. And it supports automation just like that standard inventory module. So we can use barcodes, we can use scanning, on the items. We can set them up with pictures, their dimensions, any description that we might want to have attached to those items, we can select there. All right, so let's get into the demo here. So I will pull up Intacct there. And this first page we're looking at here, this is the supplies workbench. So this is where the majority of things happen with supplies inventory. We'll come back to this here in a minute, but just to give you an idea of what that looks like, we're actually going to start out looking at some of the items that are set up for this. So we can reach those either in purchasing or inventory control here. We'll just go to this list of items. And out here, we're seeing things set up. This particular environment is set up with other purchasing items enabled. So what we're interested in is this last column of supplies items. So if we scroll down, we'll see there are a couple of those with that checked. That means those items are set up to be used within the supplies inventory module. So if we just view one of these items, you'll see really the main difference between the supplies inventory items and any other inventory items is this checkbox. Your setup, everything that you can do with an item, it's all the same. But this checkbox tells the system these are the only items that we can order through supplies inventory or request. Now, and these can also be used in purchasing. So you'll still want to purchase these items to maintain stock, but these are the only items that are then valid for requisition. Close out of that. We'll look a little bit here at kind of a workflow of what it would look like to make that request. So if we go into our purchasing module, you'll see out here, if you're familiar with purchasing, we have a new section for supplies inventory with our requisition. Now the requisition and the various transactions that apply to supplies inventory are all created automatically when we enable the environment. So if we come out here to our requisition, you can see there's existing ones. Let's open up this draft here. And really this transaction is going to look very similar to just about any other transaction you might do in Intacct, especially anything in purchasing. But if we scroll down here to our entry, you can kind of see the basics of what we need to select. So we're out here, we're choosing our item, we're choosing how much of that item we want to request from our stock, and we calculate off of price what that total value of our request would be. Now the warehouse here, that is referencing where we want the item to come from or go to. So if you're using multiple warehouses, we can track that here. If you're not, you are able to leave that blank here. And then another thing as well with the requisition that we might want to add would be our delivery method. So this is the person who's requesting it. They might be requesting it to a specific location, and they'll want to choose how they want that delivery to be done. If they're picking it up, if it's sending through a specific shipper, how that's going to happen. But that's really the only thing that would necessarily happen outside of our workbench. So let's go back there. You can see that is here in purchasing. It's also an inventory control. We have our own supplies inventory area there, and the workbench option there takes us to the same place no matter which way we go to look at it. So really what this workbench entails is an all-in-one location to see what requests are outstanding, what's available to be done on those requests, and the value of those. So kind of going across here, I mean, we can see different columns. Right now it's sorted to show us our newest requests first. We can resort this just like any other list. We can search in it. So as the list gets longer, you can search for specific items. You can see what item is being requested. You can see the quantity that's being requested. The source here references if we have determined a source for that particular request. So you can see down here, these are being sourced from a purchase. These are being sourced from another warehouse. This item saying issued, that means it's already been issued. So really that source is no longer relevant. Source quantity is showing how much is available from that source for that request. Warehouse is where that request is to. Price is the value per item that we are requesting. Employee here, you can see these are all a single employee in this environment. That could be set up to use your employee dimension to track the specific requesters. So that could be multiple people across the entire organization, saying who this is going to be sent to. And then line status there, that's kind of letting us know what our next steps might be, where we are in the process of maintaining this. And then action here, that's going to vary based on what our status is. Up here at the top, we can actually see basically all the actions that might be available on any item. And we can actually apply actions to multiple. So if you have a large list of requests, you could go out here and pick and choose and issue multiple at the same time, however you wanted to maintain those. So just kind of discuss our status options here. This first one here you can see is not ready. That is actually the draft transaction we just looked at. So this system tracks drafts, items that haven't yet been approved, anything that's coming down the workflow pipeline, and lets you know that that's coming, but is not yet ready for you to take any action from the workbench. This next one down, there's a few of these possible statuses. This one needs a shipment method to tell us how are we shipping this out to the requester. So that's something we have to go back to the requester. Likely would like to identify that in the approval process, so we can tell the requester they need to determine how that's being shipped out to them, because we need to know how to get that to them. And then the majority of these, you're seeing new requests. That just means everything was valid on the request. We're all set with it. We just need to determine the source for it, so where that request is going to be sourced from. Multiple here is telling us there's multiple sources that could or have been attached to this request. So for these two here, you can see there's a warehouse transfer in there. That means there were multiple transfers between the warehouse. Either one could be used for fulfilling that request. So until we issue that item and determine which of those options we're using, that's going to let us know there's multiple. This available is kind of at the same place as multiple, but it's saying there's only a single option for us that we can apply and then issue the supply on that request. Down here, completed. That's fairly self-explanatory. That's telling us that everything has been done. You can see over here, it's been acknowledged. It's been issued. There's nothing else for us to do that. With that, if we look under actions, we can print off a report if we need that for record keeping purposes. But other than that, there's nothing else to do there. And then needs acknowledgement tells us that we have issued this transaction, but it has not yet been either received or acknowledged. So that's kind of letting us keep track of, yes, we've sent it out. Has it been received? Does the person know that they've received it? And they can come out and acknowledge receipt of that through the system as well. And just to kind of go over actions, so you can see, I mean, we're kind of limited depending on what our status is. Our main actions that we're going to take are all available here if the status is available. So that's telling us we have everything we need to issue the supplies, so we can choose to issue that. That's a direct, it's just going out, coming directly from the warehouse that it was requested, and it's going from our existing supply. We can also create a new purchase order for that. So even though we have that supply and it's available, we can choose to order additional supply. Say the request just came in, we know it's not urgent, we're expecting more urgent requests in the next day or two, and we don't want to use up the existing stock for that. We can go ahead and create a new purchase order, order all new stock to fulfill that request while maintaining that control stock to allow us to save that for future requests. And kind of in a similar vein, linking PO, if we don't go through this workbench to create a PO, we can create a purchase order through just the purchasing module, and we can link it here to that transaction to allow us to kind of do that from two different places. So not as direct as creating it here, still gets you to the same place. And then create direct ship is another purchasing transaction that allows us to set up a different delivery location. So we can create a direct ship and have that set up as a different transaction definition that's going to go directly to our requester. So if we have someone working remotely, say, and they need additional office supplies for their job to continue working, we can ship that directly through this direct ship. And then warehouse transfer, that's just letting us say maybe we're ordering printer ink from our blue warehouse, but we actually don't have any in stock there, but we do in our white warehouse. Well, we can transfer stock from the white to the blue to fulfill the request as well. That just adds an additional step where we're tracking that transfer. So we always know where things are coming from and how they're being used. And then we can also print, no matter what step we're in, we can print off, keep track of statuses, however we want to maintain that. Just from a top level, that is supplies inventory, kind of the things that you can do from the workbench. If we're tight on time here, I don't know if we want to take any questions or if we want to move on to the next topic here.
Nathan, why don't we go ahead and move on? There were a couple questions. If you want to go ahead and respond to those,
yes.
Then we'll go ahead and have Kathy present. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Very good.
Okay. I'm Cassie, and today I'm going to talk about order entry and AR. So I'll start with today how to enter a sales order and go over how to create a custom invoice and then the revenue recognition module. Order entry allows for you to automate the quote process to allow for faster processing while working with accounts receivable module to ensure accuracy for billing. I do want to start by asking a poll question. Do you currently use the AR or order entry module?
All right. And I will share the responses.
All right, so it looks like we kind of got a little bit mixed. Some people using it, some people not. If you're not using it, this will be a good way to kind of get an idea if this may work for you or something you guys want to do. And then if you are using it, you know, maybe there's some new features you haven't seen yet here that you may want to incorporate into your current process. So next, I'm going to kind of get into Intacct here and show you the workflows and how to enter a sales order. So here's Intacct. So first, I'm going to go up here to the applications menu here and go to order entry. And then I'm going to go to the setup and go to the transaction definitions. And then I like to check this display workflows box here. So this is going to show you the workflows we have set up and then kind of how they flow through the system. I'm mostly going to be going over the sales order one today. So this is a two-step one. So a sales order is entered. And then once it's ready to move on to AR, it gets converted to this AR invoice and then is posted to AR. So that's kind of how this workflow is. So the first step you would do would come in and go to your order entry transactions. And since we're going to do the sales order, I'm going to go to the order section here. and click on sales order. And this just takes you to a list screen of all the sales orders in here. You can click add to add the new one. So I'll go ahead and fill in this information. And this will be kind of, set up based on your company. So I'll put this one in A, and then you would choose your customer. And then you would fill out the other information here that would apply your items. So I'm going to go with facility maintenance for this one. And then your dimensions, these are kind of for this environment, and these would be specific to your company. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill these out. And then you'll see this quantity option here. So this is not typical in your normal AR entry. So with sales orders, order entry, you can have quantities here. And then those have units, and the unit is based on, the item ID and what is set up for that particularly. So this has, time periods here, minutes, hours, days for its units. And then you would put in your price. And then here, and then you can come up and post or draft. Draft would just save your sales order where it is. Posting it, it's going to go ahead and create that sales order. So here you'll see that one that we just created, and now it's got this convert button here or convert by line. So those are used for when it's ready to send to AR. So you have the option to choose just specific lines if you have a multi-line sales order out there to convert it to AR, or you can just convert the whole thing to AR. So I'm going to hit this convert button. This is going to send it to an AR invoice, and it's going to pull up here. You're going to want to make sure to put in like a date of your AR invoice. And then if you needed to make any changes at this time, you could make that here as well. And then if you hit post, it's going to send it and post it to AR, which we will go in and view that invoice. So if I come back to my menu and go to accounts receivable and then go to invoices, we should see this one out here, 5-1 that I just entered. And then you would continue on with your normal AP processes for receiving payments and things like that. All right, I'm going to jump back to the order entry and go back to our sales order. Next, I'm going to go over creating a custom invoice. So for sales orders and invoices, you can have a custom invoice. This just allows you to kind of put your own logos, colors, whatever you want, versus just the standard that's in Intacct. If I pull Intacct back up, we can see this one that we have entered out here for the sales order. You can print or email it out. I'm going to go ahead and print this and show you what it looks like. So here you can see it's got a little bit of customization to it. Got its logo and fonts and different formatting. So to set that up for your workflows, you're going to go into Platform Services and go to the Printed Document Templates. So here you'll kind of see the different templates for each of the different kind of modules. So you've got AR, grants, order entry, purchasing. Then I'm going to come down to one of these order entry ones. So this Intacct sales order. These are the ones that are in the system. You would download the template, open the file. So it's going to look like this. You would make any changes here to this file. So add your logo in. If you want to change the font, change the colors, just any of the formatting, you would do that here in the Word document. And then you would save it. And then once you have that document saved from the same printed documents template, you can add a new one. So you would click add. You can name it, whatever you want to name it, and then choose the application you're wanting it for. So order entry in this case. And then the template type, is it an order, invoice, quote, any of these, you have that option there. And then you would choose your file and upload it. And then if I scroll down here, you can see the one that I have uploaded here for the sales order. So that's that one there, you can see it. Now to apply that custom template, it's gonna have to apply to your workflow specifically. So if we go back to our order entry and go to our transaction definitions again, we would come into the sales order one here and click edit and scroll down to the print section, and you'll see the drop down for a printed document template. So any of the templates you had out there, you could assign to this workflow, and then when you go to print those off, they would use that template. All right. So next, I'm going to go over the revenue recognition. This feature allows you to defer income and amortize revenue over time. You have the option to set up a schedule or manually post the journal entries for the revenue. So I'll get into that and show you how that's done. So I'm going to switch back to Intacct again. So the revenue recognition is going to also be dependent on your workflow setup. So for this one, I know that this conditional milestone schedule is set up with a revenue recognition option. So I'm going to press edit and show you where that is set up. So if you come in here and you scroll down, you should see this enable revenue recognition option. You'll want to make sure that one is on post. That way it knows to post it to a revenue recognition schedule instead of just posting it to your AR automatically. All right. With that, each revenue recognition has to also have a template for the schedule. So you will have to set that up for the workflows as well. And those can be found here under order entry and then templates. So you can see the one already set up out here for the milestone recognition. But if you're adding a new one, you can come up here, give it an ID and description, but then you have the recognition methods. So you can do straight line percentage, you have days, percentage completed. You can kind of make it customizable here for how you want it to recognize the revenue. And then how often you want the schedule to run. So monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, those are your options there. And then what day of the month do you want it posting? So you've got all of the days, and then end of period would be the last day of the month, year, so on. And then you'll see this posting method here. So you have automatic and manual. Automatic, it's going to automatically post your revenue based on the schedule set up here. Manual, you can just go in and manually post those, which I will show you how to do. So after the templates, I'll go over the revenue schedules. So it keeps doing that. If we go out here and we go to the All tab and we go to the revenue schedules, here we'll see the ones that are out there. So the conditional milestone schedule, just like the template that I showed, that's where this is pulling from, based on the sales order or workflow that was entered. And then you can see the posting method, automatic, starting date, and then whether the status has been completed or not. It defaults to filter out items that are completed or terminated. So it just shows you things not started or in progress. But you could change that and hit apply, and then you could see the ones that are completed here. All right. So next would be the posting the revenue. So to do that, you would go to the Manage Revenue Schedules here, and then you want to see the revenue post on or before. I'm going to choose the 31st since that's when I put in the order, and then I'm just going to run this with everything, but if you needed to filter it down, you could, and then hit preview. And then from here, you can select which revenues you want to post. So you would just click the checkbox on the line you want to post, and then hit post. And then it says the number of schedules posted is 2. And then that will put it into a journal entry, which you can view in your journals. So if you go to the general ledger and go to journal entries, you'll see there's a revenue recognition journal where you can view the transactions that have been posted out here. So you can view this entry. Let's try that again. So then you can see the journal entry here. All right. I don't know if we have time for questions or not.
We actually don't have questions right now. Thank you, Cassie. We will go ahead and transfer this to Logan.
All right.
All right. Hey guys, I'm Logan. We're going to be talking about some accounts payable stuff today, and none of this is necessarily new functionality, but some of it is newer, and a lot of it is underutilized or misunderstood items that we've seen come up on system reviews or trainings, so thought it would be pretty helpful to share with you guys. So the first thing we're going to talk about is some payment methods. Most of these can be kind of self-explanatory, but the first one being checks. The second one I'll talk about are credit cards. So if you go to your pay bills menu, I know some people have different credit card setups. One of the options is that you can use credit cards to accumulate payments, and then you would then, similar to how you do a payment to the credit card company, do what's called a charge payoff, and that would pay a batch of payments that you've accrued on your credit card. So if you're interested or have company credit cards and currently you're just using maybe an AP bill to put all of those in there, if you would like better tracking and to use this credit cards functionality, I'd encourage you to take a look into that. The other thing is record transfer and EFT. So there's an increasing amount of people using third-party processing for AP or integrations or other items like ACH pull, where your utility company would pull money out of your account and you would either initiate that payment on their website or just give them your credentials and they would pull that out automatically on a monthly basis. So just a reminder that record transfer is the payment method that you use for that. You'll also see it some places in the system as EFT. It's the same thing. There's no, they're not different than a record transfer. So cash, I'm going to skip over that one. That's pretty self-explanatory. But ACH and bank file is one that Sage is adding additional bank file and ACH file types to Intacct. So if you've been thinking about moving towards using a bank file or an ACH file that you would generate out of Intacct, add a payment run, and then upload to your bank, and the bank would initiate the ACH payments for AP. this is going to be a good option for you. A lot of times it can minimize the amount of checks that you have to cut out of the system, which can save you a lot of time. So that's one that we recommend taking a look at. This is probably, the ACH file might take a little bit of configuration. So if you're comfortable giving that a try, go for it. There's some good documentation out there in the Help Center, or you can feel free to reach out to whichever consultant you usually work with or anybody on our team. Sherry, could we throw up a poll real quick before I talk too much about prepaid expenses?
Yes, we can. All right. So the poll question is, how does your organization handle prepaid expense amortization? We'll give everyone about 15 seconds here to answer that question. Okay, and there are the results.
Nice. So this is exciting because it seems like a lot of people are entering and tracking prepaid items manually, and this is a good opportunity to automate some of your tracking and entering of prepaid items. So the prepaid expense module, also called PIA because prepaid expense amortization, what it will do is create prepaid expense schedules for you for a transaction. It integrates with accounts payable or purchasing, depending, whichever workflow you use primarily. The best thing about this is that it's a free module. So if you haven't heard of it before, or if you thought it was going to be a pay thing, the module itself is free. It will take some assistance to set up because it has to be configured and added to your environment. So if you are interested in looking into this more after I kind of go through this quick demo, then again, reach out to somebody who can help you with that. And so what I'm going to do now is do a quick demo. And so this is just, I only have one item entered in here in my prepaid expense amortization, but it will get added as a new module. And it has a couple of different items here, but the most important thing is this prepaid expense schedules. And so I'm on this prepaid expense schedules page. I've added a HubSpot subscription for 12 months that I want to be, I want Intacct to create a schedule for me to do these entries. And so I just went ahead and looked at where it's posting these entries to. And I see my 2 entries out here that's created so far. So my start date for this was 4/1. So I have an entry on 4/1 and 5/1 out here. And it's going to be coding this to my office supplies expense and crediting my prepayments. So that's a quick and easy example of how to how this would look if you guys had the prepaid expense module. Gosh, sorry, jumped back out again on me. So the next thing I want to talk about is a few AP tips and tricks. And so again, some of these you might have had on a call with us before, some of them you might not have. But this is going to be, this first one is specifying AP credits. So if you're in the system, you use AP credits, which can be a variety of things. It can be in an AP adjustment. It can be a negative AP bill that you put in as a credit. It can also be an AP advance. All those are going to show up similar in the Pay Bills menu. So I'm here at Pay Bills. I've just done a quick filter on ABC office supplies because I know that that vendor has some credits available out here, and I can see that in this column. So if I were to look at this bill right here, let's maybe just do this one and apply credits to it. Intacct will automatically, Intacct will automatically apply an amount of credit that pays the full bill if that's available. But we know that there are multiple things going on behind the scenes, and so it's not obvious necessarily which credits it's applying. So I have multiple lines of this bill, and I maybe wanted to see an amount for $100 paid by a credit. So if I'm looking here, what I really wanted to happen was use this $100 credit I had for that line item of the bill. And so instead, I could specify using this apply credits look that I actually want it to pull this line of my credits for this line of the bill. And so that's really helpful just to keep everything tied out. Otherwise, you can have some messy credit situations. The other thing is if I didn't want to apply credit to one line of the bill, I could choose I don't want to apply credit to this line, and I could go through here and remove which lines I want. Again, something that you can't see just out here if you're looking to apply credits with the apply credits button on the initial pay bills page. The next thing is if I go to my accounts payable, posted payments, Luke kind of talked a little bit about this. The posted payments view is useful for a couple things. First of all, you can void payments out of the posted payments view. But another thing that's helpful, and this is fairly new functionality, I think this was maybe late last year release, you can unapply credits to a bill that you've previously applied credits to. So if I did this check run here and I wanted to unapply credits from that, I could just click unapply, and here's what the view looks like. I would just choose when I want the payment to be unapplied. I can do a memo. I can say wrong credit or didn't want to use credit. And then I would just click submit here, and that would unapply my credit. That one is helpful. Another thing while we're on the topic of newer functionality, and this is also helpful as we're looking through, this is the vendor reconciliation. So if you go to accounts payable, over here on the far right, close to the bottom, is vendor reconciliation. This is a newer report. If you want to use the vendor reconciliation report, you actually have to go to accounts payable, configuration, and turn on this report right here under vendor reconciliation towards the bottom. So this report probably, unless you've turned it on already, isn't on your system, but again, free to use, just turn it on. So what the deal is with this is it sets a match sequence to all of the activity that has been tied to one bill. So I'll just use E here, and hopefully you can see this okay. I'm just going to type E. Oh, that's not going to work. I'm going to customize this report and choose the match sequence of E just so we can kind of drill down to what's going on here. But if I say the match sequence E, I've identified that this bill is paid by other activity in this match sequence called E. I can then look and see, okay, here's an adjustment that I applied to this bill, and then I applied an extra $1 of payment. So you can compile all of the activity from the bill to the payments and the different payments that were applied. So the kind of long way around this is if you go into the bill, you can click this multiple payments button here and it will show you effectively the same detail. But sometimes it's nice to just have a quick look at multiple at the same time, and you can do, if I unfilter off this match sequence, now I just have all of my activity for the month or for the week if you're just doing a review of AP. So it kind of consolidates that AP activity into a nice view here for you that can be a good use case. The next thing I have on the list here is a custom bill view. So again, this functionality has been out there for a while, and we've probably talked about it before in previous user groups, but some of these customization views are pretty useful and can solve a variety of different use cases. So I've created one of these views. If you go to Manage Views, Create New View, it will give you all of these data fields to choose. It will also let you choose the column sequence, filters, and sort. But just to make things quicker, I've already created one out here on selected bills for payment. So this is going to be pulling all of my bills that are in the state of selected. If I were doing, if I wanted a report on everything that was selected for a check run that I'm going to do, I could submit the bills to be paid in the check run or select them for the check run. I could come back here, I could print this report. If I needed someone else to review that or double check me, I could send that off to them and they would say, okay, all the bills that are selected look good. And then I could continue my check run. Alternatively, you'll see out here, there's some high priority ones. So if I wanted to have a report, if I have a ton of AP activity and I really just need to review some vendors that are tagged as high priority or high urgency, or maybe I have a staff that I regularly review. Maybe I don't always review Adam's work because he kind of does his own thing, but Carla, I could go in here, edit this view, and use a filter. So I can say, I'm just gonna do, let's just do created by Carla. I'm gonna save that. So these are selected bills by Carla. And these are all of the bills that Carla K. Grace has out here selected for me to review. You can also export this. This also works the enhanced list view if anyone's out there using the enhanced list view. Same idea. So I have this draft bills view that also pops up, and that's another useful thing if you use this enhanced view. This looks a lot more like the normal view. So again, yeah, just a reminder, if you have any questions about the ACH file or the prepaid expense module, feel free to reach out to us. And if you have any questions about situations that you have with AP credits, feel free to reach out to. Hopefully this gives you some resources to troubleshoot problems or to fix problems that come up along the way. If there's any questions, I can answer those. Sherry?
We do have a question. They are asking, how do you create a view that shows a payment method like check, ACH, EFT, and check number or ACH number? I have not seen payment number or method options.
Yep, that's a good question. So I'll do the same thing I would normally do. If anyone asks me how to build a view, you can, the trick is that this is a bill view. So you will see date paid, total paid, and amount paid, but that's because that detail is on the bill view. If I wanted to see a list of payments, I would actually go out here to posted payments, not bills, and there you can see the payment method, and you can also see the payment status. I think that was the questions that they're asking. If you wanted to see the payment method, if you want to see check numbers, that's where I would use the check register. That's the best place to see numbers. And that would be in your document number here. It doesn't look like I have any checks recently. So I think there's maybe a couple questions there that has a hodgepodge of places to get stuff. So if you're looking for check numbers, the check register is where you're going to find that. If you're looking for what bills were paid with the what payment method, that would be posted payments.
Very good. And that is the last of our questions.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen here, Sherry, and you can take it over.
All right. So The presentation today isn't over yet. However, I did want to get this in front of everybody in case people have to drop for various reasons. When you do end today's user group, if you could please fill out the survey. It takes about 2 minutes. You will be registered for a $25 Amazon gift card. So again, it takes 2 minutes and it provides us with valuable feedback. So if you do have to leave a little early, please complete that. I know we answered some of the questions while we were all going through our presentation today. If anybody thinks of anything, or I know there's a few questions we might not have gotten to, we'll follow up on those, but feel free to reach out to any one of us via email here. We do have a telephone number, local or toll-free there at the bottom of the slide. We're always available to help, so reach out to one of us if you think of anything that might not have come up during the presentation today. And like I said, we're going to take about a 15-minute break here, start back up at 3 p.m. Welcome back, everybody. This is Luke bringing us back from break. Joining us now here at 3 o'clock, our friends Eric and Zachary from DataBlend will be presenting their solution. It is used, like it says, you see on the screen there, seamless integrations. We are a DataBlend partner, so anything that Zachary and Eric discuss and show you here this afternoon, we can certainly help with. Eric, I will turn it over to you at this point.
Excellent. Luke, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for their time today, and I thank the DW team for scheduling this webinar and for inviting us on. We're always glad to work with our partners and excited to bring more visibility to customers. My name is Eric Nielsen, Senior Account Executive at DataBlend. I will be celebrating my 5-year anniversary next month, so excited to have been with DataBlend this long, and I've been the key point of contact for the DWD DataBlend partnership since DWD and DataBlend have been partners, so really have enjoyed getting to work with Luke and the whole team, and have enjoyed seeing them become one of our strongest partners. On the call with me today is my colleague Zachary Griggs, who is our VP of Client Experiences. Zachary is probably the smartest guy at DataBlend, so I always love getting to bring him along on calls with me because he makes me look good. But he's got a vast accounting background. He taught himself how to use DataBlend, and today is one of the most proficient users of DataBlend. So there really couldn't be a better colleague I got to bring on the call to demo some of our features and functionalities for you. Before I hand it off to Zachary, though, I'd love to give everyone a little bit more background of who DataBlend is and what we do, for those of you who may not be familiar with us, and some of the latest thinking on integration and iPaaS solutions in the space. So DataBlend is an iPaaS solution designed exclusively for CFOs, controllers, and finance, where a lot of our competitors in the space, what we call ETL tools, extract, transform, and load, will try to be jacks of all trades, right? Will position themselves to be the one tool you need to move absolutely everything for absolutely everywhere. Where we kind of differentiate ourselves is we try to be the scalpel, if you will, or the best in class when it comes to moving financial data, right? So any tabular data that may sit in any of the applications that you're using that would be classified as financial, we specialize in knowing how to get that data, transform that data, and then send it to the places you need to go. And there's really quite a lot more that we could do with it, and Zachary's going to take you into some of those examples in a bit. But we believe, according to our research, that the average organization could be using up to 6 or 8 applications that are housing some sort of financial data, right? Payroll systems, ERPs, CRMs, right? And that list goes on a little bit. So think to yourself, how are these connected today? And how am I evaluating those systems? And what we come in is we offer an easy to use, intuitive interface that makes it easy to move this data and have peace of mind that the data is doing what you need it to be doing. Now, what qualifies us to be on this call today is that today we have over 1,000 customers. And before I mentioned that I've been with DataBlend for 5 years, when I started with DataBlend 5 years ago, we had just under 100, and we mainly connected to 2 systems. Today we have over 1,000 customers, and we connect to over 100 systems, right? And I don't say that to be precocious. I say that because when you subscribe to Data Blend, or when you ask DWD to help you implement Data Blend to maximize the automation of your business processes, you're getting the experience that we have with those 1,000 customers. And so you're not only figuring out how to connect to the systems you need to, but you're getting the peace of mind that your data is going to move in the most streamlined fashion possible based off of what we're seeing from the rest of our mid-size, high-growth organizations. So a few weeks ago, I was honored to get to represent Data Blend at the ITA conference in Memphis, Tennessee, where there are both resellers of technology as well as users of technology. They get together and kind of talk about what they're seeing in the space, what they'd like to see, some of the challenges they're facing. And one of the interesting things is in most rooms, everybody was clamoring for AR, right? Everybody wants AI, excuse me. They want AI and they want it now, and they want it in their tools. They want their tools just to have AI and do all the things they want to do. But where a lot of the tools are placing themselves in the market today, right? Whether you're taking payroll tool or ERP or CRM, is that they're really focused on being the best they can be for that space. And it really is in alignment with what our core beliefs have been all along, which is that you should have an iPaaS, a strong iPaaS solution, right, in the middle of the applications that you're choosing to use for your business, so that you get the most out of those applications, right? Don't, and I'll talk about this a bit today, but break the idea of traditional integration and don't evaluate an application based on how it connects. Evaluate a application based off of how it works for your business, and then let Data Blend help you figure out how to connect it and how to move the valuable data that's going to sit inside of it, right? And so there's this idea of a robust platform to unlock the value of the best-in-class applications that you're using in payroll, in sales, in accounting, in marketing, right? And again, that list goes on. Speaking of that list, here is an example of some of the 100+ applications that we have experience connecting with today. It's funny, as I look at this list, I don't always remember when I start working with a customer, right? If one of my colleagues brings up a customer that I might have signed 4 years ago, I'm like, when did I sign them? What was the conversation? But I almost never forget the day and the time of when we started working with an application, right? And the first time we integrated with Stripe, the first time we integrated with Zoho, the first time we integrated with Paycom, right? I always remember where I am when we're having those conversations, because it's such a big opportunity for us, because it not only opens the door for that opportunity, it opens the door for our existing customer base, and it opens the door for our customers yet to come. And this is where I like to talk about how we are an integration tool of evolution, right? We can't just come to you and say, hey, here are the tools we connect with, hope it works, right? We have to be able to grow and expand what we're doing to match what our customers and partners are doing. And that's really it, is our roadmap is completely designed to suit the needs of our customers and our partners. And I'm proud to say in the last 2 years, after talking to thousands of prospects and hundreds of customers, I've only had to say no to one opportunity in those last 2 years. And that was because of limitations of that vendor that would have violated our SOC 2 procedures. And that's something we won't do. And I always think that's a great reason to say no, right? We take data security very seriously. Part of how we've been able to be so flexible is that we have what I like to call a Swiss Army-like way of connecting to systems. So we have our ability to connect to APIs, right? And we have a growing, robust list of standard API connectors that we build and we maintain and we grow at no cost to our customers. Sage Intacct is our #1 most robust API. 82% of our customers are using us to connect to Sage Intacct today. We can send pretty much anything in and out of Sage Intacct. That list also includes systems like HubSpot and Salesforce, and there's payroll providers on there. We also have the ability to connect to systems via what we call a custom script. So if there's an open API, but we haven't connected to it yet, we could use our script connector to build custom integration to that system at a much lower cost that you're going to see in other places in the market. We also have an on-prem connector, that's that second square you see on the screen, which gives us the ability to connect to systems that may be more legacy and still housed on a local server, or databases. And the third way is our SFTP connector, which stands for Secure File Transfer Protocol. And that's really cool because it gives us the ability to receive and send out flat files, right? And today, many of the systems have a lot of ways of automating data files to that server. And so that's a fancy way of saying that today, with just an SFTP connector, we could provide near API connectivity without paying for or building out the API. And it's really cool functionality. And Zachary's going to showcase some of that in just a moment. And what's valuable about these Swiss Army-like ways of connecting is not only do we have one path often of connecting to a system, we often have more than one path. And what that gives us the ability to do is offer the most robust, most cost-efficient form of integration that meets your needs. A great example of this is payroll providers. As I mentioned before, we have a pretty good list going of some of the top payroll providers out there: Paycom, Paylocity, Paychex. But what's also common about payroll providers is that they will charge for access to their API, which can be sometimes a roadblock to using it. And their APIs are always robust enough for the integration that you're requiring, right? The data that you're requiring to get out of it to send to your ERP. So what's great is sometimes we look at our SFTP connector and receive a flat file from that payroll system in an automated fashion so that no one has to touch the file, no one has to manipulate the file, but we can still seamlessly send that data from the payroll provider into an ERP or into whatever system that you need to send it to. And that's just one example of how our flexible types of connections really open up the door to make sure that you have not only the most cost-efficient integration, but the most automated and streamlined integration for the process that you're trying to run. And again, working with a tool like DataBlend and a partner like DWD gives you that expertise to say, hey, we have 100 customers who've done this before you, and from our experience, this is how you want to connect. It gives you the most robust connection at the lowest price point. As I mentioned before, one of our big challenges, and it's really everyone's challenge, is to break this idea of traditional integration, right? This idea of, well, I got to connect A to B and B to C. And often what happens there is there's a lot of data that you don't move because you feel like it's too expensive or there's no need to build that bridge to just move that one piece of data, right? This might be a vendor ID back so that your vendor information is in sync from one system to another, right? Or contact information so that you have different billing contacts, or bringing invoices and payments back into your CRM so your sales team has visibility. DataBlend doesn't believe that should be the case. In fact, it's in line with our core beliefs that DataBlend should sit in the middle of the applications you're using. We build bridges between DataBlend and those systems, and then you can move the data anywhere you need to between any of the systems you're connecting to. And this slide kind of showcases that there's 4 applications, but it's not just 3 integrations to Sage Intacct, it's 6 different workflows, right? Moving between those different systems, all because DataBlend's in the middle of it, empowering it. And this, in the essence, is not only breaking the traditional think of integration, but embracing the true power of business process automation, right? The only way you could truly automate your business processes is by having a tool that can provide seamless integration between the applications you're using. So before I hand it over to Zachary, and I promise I'm about to because I know everyone's probably tired of hearing my voice, I just want to leave you with 3 key ideas to think about. 1, it does not have to be difficult or expensive to get what you want, right? A lot of reps will say to me, oh, I have this deal, but integration is such a headache. But bringing DataBlend in, bringing DWD in to talk about what you're trying to do, it's worth having that conversation because I promise you it's not as expensive as you think it is. 2, there's more power in any-to-any than one-to-any integration, right? It's very common for us to start with the initial pain point, but it's very critical to really embrace this idea of what are all the applications we're using, where does the data live, and how can we move it more seamlessly? And then 3, beyond simple integration, it's business process automation. When I was at the ITA last month, one of my customers came up to me and says, Eric, these people in the room, they don't get it. They all want AI and they want their tools to have AI. But what comes before AI is that you have to have business process automation. You have to have a tool like DataBlend that's moving your data between the systems so that AI knows what to do with it when it gets it, right? And I thought that was a very powerful comment and just something I ask you to keep at the top of mind as Zachary takes you through our product today. And with that, I will now hand it off to my colleague, Zachary Griggs, to provide today's demo. Zachary?
Perfect. Thanks, Eric. So I'm Zachary Griggs. Once I share my screen, I'm going to take you through the demo. And if you have any questions along the way, I'd say probably put it in the chat. I'll try to leave about 5 minutes or so in order for us to get to those. But what I'm hoping to do is take you through a couple of use cases that, having been in the seat of a director of finance and lived this, I find these great value adds when it comes to automation. And historically, before I joined the DataBlend team 4 years ago, they were difficult, they were expensive, all the things Eric was saying in order to automate. And so I'm going to show you some ways that hopefully we can make it much easier. So Eric, could you just confirm you see my DataBlend screen?
I do. You're good.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm logged into DataBlend, and we're on our dashboard. I'm going to focus on a few of these favorited workflows that I have. There's a few in here that I'm going to use as examples, and you can see there's a little over a dozen different use cases. They probably look similar to things that you might be doing on a monthly basis, quarterly, annual basis. You'd be doing allocations. You might be doing some RevRec, bringing in data from external sources, which might be databases or other cloud systems, your quote-to-cash process, your payroll entry, all of those things. You can see here just examples that exist in my demo instance. I'm not going to get through all of them, but a few that I want to highlight. Starting here, just looking at this donor workflow. If I kick this off, it's going to then run this in the background. What I'm doing is connecting to my Salesforce system, and I'm going to go send in some donor data. So let's pretend we're a nonprofit organization. We got a bunch of donors, and we have a donor management system, or that's what we're using Salesforce for. And we want that to go create those donors within Intacct. I can kick this off. It could also be scheduled or triggered from somewhere else, so I don't have to do this. But let's say it's month end, and I don't want to wait for the next schedule. I simply run that. What's happening now is if I come over to my Salesforce demo instance, you'll see my billing address is 1 Broadway. And if I go over to my Intacct system, if it hasn't completed yet, you can see it's already actually updated to 1 Broadway, so I wasn't quick enough going into Intacct. But within that 1 minute, what it did was it populated my new address within my Intacct system. So just to give you an idea, and I'm sure you're familiar with this with other integration tools, but you could see seamlessly between these two cloud-based systems, it's connected them, it's also brought over the data, and then I just use that as one example, but you can bring over whatever you'd like between those systems. What it also did is it did some validation. And on my screen here, you're going to see something that just came into my inbox. So you see, based on the timestamp here, it literally just got processed. When I ran that integration, it did a check. It checked for some of my information that it's populated. As you know, in Salesforce, somebody might forget to fill out a field. They might forget to put in who the primary contact is, who the billing contact is. And if you're like me, at least when I was in the director of finance seat, I always had concerns with that because now I'm getting bad data into my target system. DataBlend allows you to do this validation between the systems that's going to help you clean up your data before it hits the target system. So these donors, I know that by the time we have to actually send them an invoice and follow up to receive payment or make sure it gets booked into Intacct properly, all the proper fields that I need are being checked along the way. And you can set this validation up to check for whatever you'd like that's important for your process. So it might look a little different for payroll than it does for your invoicing process. And you can check for any number of fields to make sure that they're in sync between the two different systems. In addition to that, you can see I have a couple other workflows related to the nonprofit space. So in here, if I had a pledge, I can run that as well. Same concept. It's going to go through and just take my opportunities and create them within Intacct. Then I also have number 4 and 5, which is a little unique if you've worked with Intacct and Salesforce, but it goes to show that we can work with any of the different objects that exist and what's available in these APIs. And so you're not limited by what is possible through the native point-to-point connections. You can really build out this integration around what your needs are. And so if you're using Salesforce in a unique way, maybe you're bringing over bills or you're using a different object for vendors, all of those are possible as well. So you can get really creative in how you're integrating, and you can have your business process the baseline of what we're going to build around rather than modifying your business process to fit into an integration, a native point-to-point integration. Right. But once those finished up, these two I'm not going to run because they're going to do the same thing. But if I go down, some of the things I want to showcase would be this one down here, number 10. We also can work, and Eric had it on his screen, we can work with on-prem databases. And so if you have a legacy database, maybe you're working with a solution that just has some SQL database that you need to connect to, and traditionally it's been hard to get data in and out of that, we can work with that. And if I go in and I click run here, it's actually going to function the same way as the cloud-based Salesforce connection. And so as you can see, even with on-prem databases, the way that we have it set up, it's going to look and feel very much like just a cloud-to-cloud type of solution. This is connecting to that database, and in this case, I'm sending a bunch of QuickBooks data into the database, and what I'm actually doing is transforming it from the local chart of accounts in QuickBooks into my corporate chart of accounts. So I'm doing a little bit of consolidations between the two, and it's going to go through a mapping, which I'm going to show you down here through this mapping table. So if I click on this and pop open a new screen, very simple mapping. I have the ability to type into this. I can add more rows, but it allows me to maintain how I'm translating that data that's in QuickBooks into my corporate chart that I'm sending over into the SQL database. And if I need to add a new code, I can right within here, and we give you full capability to come in. You don't need to speak to a developer. You can simply maintain this yourself. And what's also going to happen when it finishes up is it's going to do validation. It's going to check and say, we found a missing account, 4110, does not exist when it comes to my corporate chart. And so I need to go in there, add my mapping, and then rerun the integration. So it's also going to check that your mappings are up to date. And in case you have any duplicates, you could check for that as well. So it can give you a high level of confidence that whatever we're moving when you automate these processes, that it's going to check appropriately, that the fields are populated, and that nothing is either overstated or understated. Now, the last use case that I want to show, if I go back to my dashboard here, and let's go back to dashboard. So I want to take a look at the payroll entry, and that's this one right here, number 7. But let's say that I'm working with one of those tools that Eric was talking about, the payroll company that might be a little bit difficult to get my data from, but I can run a report. I can get it into a raw file. How do I get that into Intacct? That's where I'm going to open up my inbox. And I already have an email pointed at this email address, CG payroll files at datablendfiles.com. And I attach the document. It's just a CSV. It's whatever I got from the payroll system. I'm going to hit send. When I do, I'm going to send it without a subject, without a body. It's going to get ingested by DataBlend through email. So I never even needed to come into DataBlend, but I'm going to just keep it up so you can see it. You can even have this sent from whoever the payroll provider is as well. And once it recognizes that the emails come in, it's going to recognize that it's a payroll entry. You can see it's actively creating that right now. And it's going to create that within Sage Intacct. So we'll give that a second to finish up, and when it's done, you're going to see that my 6 entries here is going to go to 7, and it's going to have created that entry, and all I had to do was hit forward on an email. I don't need to do any Excel gymnastics. I don't need to change up what's in that file. The integration is going to do all of that for me, and then it's going to go create my appropriate entry on the Intacct side. So we'll give that a second to finish up. There it is, and we'll come back over here, hit enter. And we could take a look at the entry. Pretty standard, really simplistic payroll entry in here. If you had custom dimensions, user-defined dimensions, all not a problem. You could apply allocations on the way in. You could also apply allocations after the fact. So if I came over here and I said, I want to take this payroll entry allocation and run this, it's going to then allocate my payroll entry based on what I have as percentages within Google Sheets, but that can come from anywhere. You wanted to do something based on, overall revenue, or it could be a split of expenses, it could be based on timesheets, LOE, whatever you're comfortable with to use your allocation. This is going to apply an allocation to that payroll entry that just got created. And of course, just like the other or other workflows I showed before, it did validation. It checked, in this case, it's checking if there's any anomalies in the data. In this example, you have someone, Bob Porter, that got paid 25% more than the prior payroll. This might just be something to notify your HR manager so that they can make sure that whatever was processed for payments was accurate. It could be a second check in the process. So this is just another example, and you can see we put these on just about all of our workflows so that just because it's automated doesn't mean you need to lose confidence in the data integrity or lose visibility into anything that might need attention as part of that automated process. And you can see my payroll entry just finished up my allocation. We can come back in here. Here's my allocation. Take a look at what the actual entry looks like, and you can see it's going to allocate each of my individuals across my various projects over here. And all of that just went through about 4 or 5 different workflows in about 5 to 7 minutes to run through these. You could put them on a schedule and automate all different types of tasks and really build it around what your different use cases are and what your process looks like today. And the last page I want to show within the tool, I'm going to go to the credentials. It's going to be very similar to what Eric brought up when it came to his NASCAR slide with the different products that are out there. You can see these are all the different plugins that we have. A lot of popular names that you're probably familiar with. There's about 80 of them on this list. And then if there's any that are not on the list, touching on what Eric was saying about being able to connect in different ways, we have SFTP, which means we can collect files. It's a very flexible tool. So CSV, TXT, standard Excel, whatever you need, you can pass through in that way. You can also use our script connector here, which basically means if there is an API and we can get access to it, DataBlend can connect to it, and we can go get that data. And then what I was showing before with the database, that's this one here. And so we have a bunch of these catch-all connections as well. So quite a few different options, but essentially if the data is out there and accessible, there's a good chance we're going to be able to help you. DWD is going to be able to help you automate that process. Good. But that's all I had for the demo today, so I will pass it back, Eric, to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Zachary. So again, I think one of the big things we just want to highlight are these 3 key ideas, right? Excuse me, ideas. I don't know why I can't pronounce the word ideas today. It doesn't have to be difficult or expensive to get what you want, right? This is more, there's more power in any to any than one to any. And this is beyond integration. This is business process automation. And as my customer mentioned a few weeks ago in Memphis, it's really the prerequisite for AI. It's the prerequisite for what's coming in the future. So it's an important question to ask. Are you ready for tomorrow, right? And with that, I just want to kind of open it up and see if anybody has any questions about anything Zachary showed them or anything we talked about today on the call.
All right, if you have questions, please use the chat box to go ahead and submit them. Right now we don't. Can you share with the group maybe some popular questions you get from Intacct users?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Well, one of the core things is this idea of, well, I'm using this system and no one's been able to connect to it in the past, or in the past it's been a headache, and so they're slow to bring it up because they've had a bad experience in the past. But what I always tell them is it's worth us having that conversation and just looking into it, right? And with a series of 5 questions, the team at DWD can help you figure out, okay, they could get us a flat file, or hey, we can they have an open API and that's changed, right? So and that's the important thing to recognize, is the technology landscape is constantly changing. And so just because you had a bad experience with an application 3 years ago and it has you hesitant to try to integrate with it again today, it's definitely worth revisiting, because the technology has definitely advanced, and the DataBlend's flexibility is fairly robust. The other thing that I'll mention is there's value that we could offer Sage Intacct users by doing what we call like in and out integrations, right? And I think Zachary touched on that with his data quality reports. Is if we could take data that's in Sage Intacct, pull it out, run it through a data quality report, and then push that somewhere else. And that's applicable to a bunch of different modules, whether you're doing something with projects or whatnot. And I don't know, Zachary, if you want to add to that at all. But it's not just about integration and going to systems outside of Sage Intacct. There's also value we could solve to business processes that you want to do within Sage Intacct.
Mm-hmm. Yep, completely agree. We do some validation, so you can have workflows like at month end. If you wanted to validate that all your customers, all your vendors, maybe it's tax time, you want to make sure that the proper information is on your vendor records and Intacct, you can have the integration essentially do a sweep of the system and notify the appropriate people if anything is missing as part of that process. And then if you wanted to have other actions, like I used the allocation one as an example, where it's like Intacct to Intacct or Salesforce to Salesforce, where it might be moving data, might be applying some type of rev rec as well. All of those things are possible, so it doesn't have to be just from system A to system B.
Right, so true business automation. And then I guess seeing that there's still no other questions, the last thing I'll say with our closing out minute here is there's no time like the present, right? I think it's easy to push integration off like it's one of those things like spring cleaning or switching out for your summer clothes, right? You're always like, oh, I can wait one more week. That's a lot. That's a big project. We do our best to make it easy, and the team at DWD is fully trained, fully certified, and they know this tool, so they're there to help you. So there's never a bad time to ask the question, hey, can we be doing this better? And letting them help you. So I think no time like the present is I guess one of the closing things I want to leave everybody with.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for taking time today to go over your solution. And if anybody has questions, feel free to submit them. We'll make sure that they get answered after today's presentations. If you have interest, let us know, and we'll answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.
You can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. All right, so everybody out there, again, this is Luke with DWD. We are a Martis certified partner. So Martis is a budgeting and reporting tool. A few of you might be using it currently or may have seen a demo or seen it here or there if you've joined us in the past. So I pulled up this slide just to kind of give anybody who's not familiar with Martis a general understanding of what we're talking and thinking about here. Yeah. As many of you know, Sage Intacct offers a basic budget process. This tool here is going to be a little more advanced. So for those of you who have a little more sophistication to your process, and I mean that in the sense of you need to have department heads or program managers inputting their budgets and then eventually consolidating into one primary operating budget. If that example sounds like your organization, this is going to be a tool that's more meant for you than the basic Sage Intacct budgeting. Like it says here, you can ditch the spreadsheets. I've come across many clients that they're doing all of their budgeting via spreadsheets. They send it out to their department heads or their program managers and then bring them all in together, input a few formulas here and there, and get a consolidated look at their budget. This is going to do away with all of that. The next area in line is going to be personnel budgeting. So if you want to get a better idea of how those expenses are affecting your organization, this gives you the ability to plan, forecast, manage your headcount, and look at it from a position-to-position standpoint as opposed to a very high-level overview. Next up, you've got reporting. So you're going to get dashboards and other reports along with the Martis software. So in that, what I've seen with the clients I've worked with that use Sage Intacct with Martis, they might have some users in Martis who input their budget and they need to look at specific financial reports or budget versus actuals, but they don't want them to have access to Sage Intacct. That's where Martis, you could have certain users in Martis that don't have access to Sage Intacct, but the two solutions speak to one another so that you can compare budget to actuals in Martis, and therefore those users don't need to have access to your Sage Intacct environment. Last but not least, you've got forecasting, so you can present multi-year projections, have scenario planning, and then look at a cash flow analysis. So all that being said, this is a great tool that works and is integrated with Sage Intacct. Next slide before I get into a brief demo here of Martis. Why should you choose Martis for your budgeting, forecasting, and reporting? So there's a little bit of overlap from the slide I just presented in this one, but the good thing is this is a cloud-based platform. So those of you who are using Sage Intacct, you're used to logging in from your internet browser. Same thing applies with Martis. You have collaborative worksheets. That means team members, departments, programs, they can have access to their specific worksheets, allow those teams to update, modify, enter their budgets, but not see others potentially because there are restrictions in place. There's a budget widget that makes it easy to use. It kind of guides you. You have budget approvals. That's one area that this basic Sage Intacct budgeting doesn't have. You don't have a workflow capability, so you can't say, once this budget is finished, push it to Adam for approval so that then it'll post to your budget. It's fully integrated. That's one of the best parts in my mind. You don't have to worry about exporting it from Martis and importing it into Sage Intacct, or vice versa from a budget versus actual standpoint. The data flows both ways, so you don't have to worry about it, and just like it says there, it is seamless. The other great thing about Sage Intacct, all of you are familiar with dimensions, so you might have dimensions called location or entity or department or project or grant or fund. All of your dimension codes sync with Martis. So when you're inputting your budget, it's not like you have to remember, hey, did I remember to pull in our funds that we added this year, or the grants that just got renewed? We need a new one. Martis is going to read your Sage Intacct environment automatically. So I'm going to jump into a demo here of Martis, and you'll see a little bit more of what I was just talking about. So when you first log in here, this is my Martis demo environment. This is the opening screen. You've got some nice tools here to, or I should say resources, that give you ideas of what release just occurred and what that all entails. This is more or less a soundboard for them to give you all the latest information related to Martis. Down below, we've got budget info. You can see that there are updates recommended in my environment, but this ensures that you have certain areas closed or default set so that when you run reports or view your dashboards, data is actually going to flow into it. That's what this is doing here, where all my red font is located here. All right, when we look at my menu off to the left, we've got different areas here, and I'll kind of give you a high level overview of each of these. Obviously not going to get to all the detail or that far into the weeds today, but if you're ever interested in Martis or seeing more, we're always happy to give you a full demo of everything. So I'm going to jump into your dashboard. That's the flashy part of the software. This is what it seems like everybody wants to see when it comes to accounting software these days. So you have a default dashboard. Again, I'm going to do a high-level glance at this. You have different widgets down below that show you monthly revenue and expense, income being the blue bars, expense being the red line going across it, so you can compare that. You got monthly revenue on the next one here. You can compare current year versus prior year, and then see how that looked as opposed to where you were budgeting it. So it looks like January of that year, outstanding. Scrolling down here, we've got other ones like showing us account income top 10, so you can see which were the greater revenue generators for your organization. Similarly, you have account expenses down below, similar chart there. Monthly gain and loss, current year versus prior year compared to the budget. Monthly expense, similar to what we saw up above with the monthly revenue. So each one of these you can click on, and you can apply filters at the top. So if you wanted to see it for a specific department, so I want to see it for our accounting team, you would click load. Not great data there probably for the accounting team, but it's meant to be able to filter on different areas of your business so you can get a finger on the pulse. The other thing I'll just point out, you have other reports listed here. I'm not going to go into detail on all of these, but you have different things where you can compare year-to-date budget comparison. So if I look at that one, this gives you, from a total perspective, total budget versus the actuals, which is being read from your Sage Intacct environment. Gives you an idea of what you have remaining from a budget perspective, percent of budget used, and so forth. These are all default reports or dashboard widgets that come with the software. You do have the ability to create your own, so you can say report builder over here, and it gives you a little flexibility similar to what you're used to in Sage Intacct, where you can create your own reports. It's similar technical expertise, so it's not like you need to know coding or anything like that to build your own reports. One other one I might show here is a forecast one. Many organizations like to see, okay, well, we closed said month and we want to pull in actuals, and then for the remaining months we want to see what budget, and then from a total perspective what we're looking at for the year. So you'll notice my columns across the top, we have actuals all the way through September, and then we have budget for the remaining 3. So a good report to show for forecast purposes to get an idea of what you're going to look like come the end of the year. Okay. One other thing I'll mention on the dashboard here is the updater. The updater is important because, going back to what I said about your chart of accounts or your dimensions, you'll notice dimensions here. You can manually sync those. However, when you connect your Martis database to Sage Intacct, it's going to run an updater every night. So from a dimension standpoint, it's going to look at your dimensions overnight and bring in anything new that didn't exist previously. I don't have much data over here or down below to show you, but it would show the updates occurring each night, and it also brings in actuals. So it brings in the 3 prior months of actuals automatically. You don't have to do any manual work at all. Now, if you said, I want to bring in 5 prior months of actuals because we actually did some adjustments that affected those months that were closed, and we need to see what that looks like. This section here is where you can sync those monthly actuals. Same thing if you just added a project or department and you needed it to show in Martis now, you just push the button and it runs through that sync. There's no, you need to have a file to upload it. None of that with Martis being connected automatically to Sage Intacct. All right, so let's get into the budget area itself. That's going to be your planner. So I think of this section kind of as building blocks, more or less. So you have your planner set up. Not a whole lot to see here, other than think of this as your budget versions. So right here I have mine that's called working budget. But if you're an organization, maybe you have a board approved budget. That budget does not get changed throughout the year. It remains intact. But you want to have a working or maybe in-house budget. I've heard it called various names over the years. But you want to have 2 budget versions, one that remains the same and one where you kind of adjust or make tweaks to. You can create another budget even mirroring, let's just say, your board-approved budget, and you could have 2 of those sitting out here. Okay, so one you're not going to modify, and one you're going to make adjustments maybe month over month. The nice thing about the board approved budget, you can freeze it, so users can't go in and make changes to it after the fact if it's frozen. There is also a nice import feature, so if you're just getting started on Martis or you prefer to work in spreadsheets, again, I would highly recommend getting away from spreadsheets as much as you can, but you can import them if that's the approach you want to take. When I jump over here to my worksheet management, that's going to show me all of the worksheets that I have out here. Okay. The 2 columns here that you're looking at, one being location, the other being department. These are 2 dimensions in my demo environment. These are considered header dimensions, so they kind of drive your budget from, let's just call it, if you were in Excel and you had a separate tab for each budget, these would essentially be your tabs. So you might have a tab for general counseling services, you might have another tab for general youth center, and so forth. Those are going to be your headers, and I call it tab specific. When we go to modify our worksheets, this is just showing us the options that we have out here. You're going to notice a gain or loss target that we're trying to hit. and then you have owners and approvers of the budget. So this is kind of where the workflow comes into play. So Ed here is going to be the owner, and Ed is going to input the budget. Once finished, Sierra and Kelly are going to approve it. And you can modify this if you're an admin, and you can specify who needs to be an approver and who needs to be an owner. All right. So from the planner setup, we're going to jump up here to our worksheets. And this is where you, or the user in your organization, again, could be department-related individual, program-related individual, they're going to come out to their worksheets. They might have restrictions, so they might not see as many worksheets as I see, but they're going to be able to come out here, click the pencil icon, and it's going to list out here the combinations or accounts that they can budget. So you might recall I just said the header dimensions, you'll see location and department at the top here, and you'll see down below, you'll see line dimensions is what we would call the project here. Your account is always going to fall within the line. They're going to have their own unique lines within each worksheet. The project, again, could be unique for each of the header combinations. Straightforward approach here, you can click into this. You can modify your month if it has existing values, or it could be a blank row like what we see down below here in this combination here for membership fees. You could say $300, manually key it in, and then we would just want to make sure we save that. Okay. I just toggled down. So what you're seeing now are my values. The other feature I wanted to show you here with the membership fees was if you said you're going to have a specific amount each month, this calculator icon is going to allow you to input an amount. Let's just say it'd be $300 a month. Preview it. You'll see it plops it in each month, and then you can save it. You've got other adjustment types up here. So again, not to go too far into the weeds on this, but you can have allocated amounts. So if you have specific, specific cycles in your business where certain months are higher than others, you can have allocation. You can copy existing values from years past. There's a burn rate option there and a few others. So you have a little bit of options to automate your budgeting, or at least input the value so you're not going one by one, right? And then let's just say you want to have notes here related to your membership fees. Maybe you have a subscription of sorts to your software. So you can have as many notes, and you'll notice that I can make that as large as needed, so you can add as much to that you want, and then that's going to appear or be attached so that you can always reference that back. Or maybe an approver needs to know certain information, so you'd want to put that in the notes field. Okay. Want to make sure I have enough time to show you a few other things here. So from a worksheet standpoint, it's easy to input the data. The user's really user-friendly to input and save. Again, this budget worksheet is unlocked. Once approved, if you wanted to have your users not have the ability to update anything after the fact, you could make that locked, uneditable, unless you're an admin user. So that's what's great about having the specific workflow and those abilities, whereas in Sage Intacct's basic budgeting module, there is no workflow, there's no approval, there's no locking, edits can be made if you have the right permissions. So this kind of gives you a little more structure to your budgeting process, to say the least. One other area I wanted to jump to was showing you the special purpose worksheets at a high level. Some of you might have calculations that go into your budget. For instance, we have a few clients where maybe ticket sales are big, so you need to see, well, we're going to have so many events over the course of the year, and then you sell so many tickets, and then that drives so much revenue, and you want to see how that affects your budget. The special purpose worksheets is going to take an approach similar to that. So membership subscription revenue, if we take a look at this special purpose worksheet is what it's called, you can see where you can input manual values. So in this case, looking from top to bottom, you might have current members or subscribers, 150 in January. New members or subscribers gets us to 170 total. Your fees for membership or subscriptions is $150. It does the calculation automatically and then plugs it into your budget at the end of the day. So these calculations come in handy. We've seen many of our clients use this so that they can get away from those spreadsheets that they're tracking. And this does the calculation. It gives the departments, the programs, the ability to input what they think they're going to generate over the course of the year. And then it automatically flows over to your worksheet. So what we were just looking at, once you complete this step, it automatically flows over, and it's not like anybody's doing any double entry or anything like that. The system won't allow them to overwrite the values that are coming from this special purpose worksheet. So again, not to get too far into the weeds, this is meant more for calculating a budget value. My example was ticket sales, but it could be a multitude of things, subscription revenue, etc. I'm going to show you this summary of the planner here too. This is going to be driven from the worksheets that we just looked at. So this is going to give you a budget summary. And what I like about this is it gives you your 12-month spread. This is what everybody wants to see from a budget. It shows you your accounts off to the left, cost of goods sold if that's applicable, expenses, and then we get down to our net gain loss. What's great about this is the flexibility and modifications you can make to it. So if you said, I want to see actually what it looks like from a department standpoint, we can change our rows and load that. And then we see, okay, counseling services we think is going to generate X amount of revenue month over month. And we look down at youth center and so forth. So we kind of get a perspective of what do the departments look like. If we go back to our account view, we can also change our columns. So if we wanted to see what the revenue accounts, expenses are on the left, maybe we want to see what it looks like from a department column standpoint. So we can see our departments side by side at the top with our various revenue accounts off to the left. So like I said, there's so many specific uses for this. You can swap your various dimensions in and out to get a different look at things as far as your budget goes. Just like our dashboards, we have a few other options in the report drop-down. Budget analysis, that's going to give you multiple budget and variance looks trailing 12-month actual as well. So again, lots of reporting options out there. And while I have a few minutes left here before we jump back to our friends over at Ramp, I'm going to show you, again, this is going to be very high level, but personnel budgeting. So there's a lot of detail within this module itself, personnel budgeting. So you can have what's called scenarios. So if you wanted to have a base scenario and you wanted to have another one that's including a 5% cost of living adjustment, you can have multiple personnel budgets. The meat and potatoes of this is going to be within the positions. So there are separate building blocks that go into your personnel budget, but it all comes together mostly right here. So you've got your positions, which are your employees. So what I like to highlight here is if you have multiple counselors, you'll want to have counselor 1, 2, 3 through 7 here. and then you're going to actually tie the employees to this. This section would only typically be viewed by those who should be budgeting, those employees. Again, there's ways to restrict everything so certain people aren't seeing other salaries within the organization. So no worries on that front. But where it really gets into the level of detail I think most organizations want, if we look at Caden Adkins, the CFO here, you can see their name and then basically what organization expenses they're going to have. So you see Caden's salary here, which is semi-monthly. Might receive a bonus once a year, could receive a bonus based on anniversary dates. We've got a pay type here for health insurance, so that gets calculated. They might get a retirement match, and then also a pay type for Social Security and Medicare. So for each of your positions and each of your employees, you're going to assign a pay type, or I should say multiple pay types based on what they're going to receive from a benefit package that your organization is paying. So you're going to budget for those expenses. That's going to be at the position, and I like to say employee level. So you're going to have to look at the building blocks on the far left here. I always look at this from a high level. You have your employees. You have the pay types that get assigned to the employees. You might have a variety of position types. You have coverages. So if an employee might have employee-only coverage, employee and spouse, employee family, and so forth. And that's going to drive the health insurance, could drive other coverages as well. So while I've got a couple minutes left here, I'm going to look at the tabs across the top and just kind of show you at a high level what I see most important when demoing the personnel budgeting. If you look at a detail perspective, that's going to give you lots of information. So going from left to right, you'll see the position, the employee. You're going to see their home dimension or home cost center or home unit, whatever you want to call it. That's where their salary is being booked. Many of you might ask, well, we have employees that are grant specific, so their time this week might go to grant A and their time next week might go to grant B. The nice thing about Martis, it has a way to allocate those salaries or hourly earnings. So what you're seeing here primarily is their home cost center or unit, which is made up of location, department, and project. And in Caden's case, you can see salaries, $8,000 a month, and it gives you a lot of detail there. Maybe you don't need all that detail, but it's certainly here, and you could filter on different things. So if you said, I just want to see salary-related items, you can filter on that, and then there that gives you everybody's salary. And then last but not least, I wanted to jump to the allocation because I know many of our organizations do budget that way, and their employees' earnings do get allocated out to different funds, grants, departments, projects. So when looking at this allocation analysis here, you would build an allocation and say, okay, for Caden, 50% of their salary should be allocated to this combination here, and then 50% should be allocated here. And those percentages could be based on different purposes, head counts, different things. But this would allow you to get that view of where those expenses are going and what that overall picture looks like. So I know I'm right here at 5 after. I'll kind of pause and see if we're ready to jump to the ramp, folks. And then we can always take questions after that.
My name's Nigel. I'm a solutions consultant here at Ramp, so you can think of me kind of as product expert and more on the technical side of our sales team. My background at least comes in ERP and FP&A implementation, so all around the kind of accounting software world before coming to Ramp within the last year. But I'm super excited to be here with you all and to get to show you a little bit about Ramp, the ultimate financial platform for modern finance teams. So to open things up to talk about like what Ramp is for anyone who's unfamiliar, Ramp was first brought in right as a corporate credit card and expense management platform, and it has quickly expanded past that. But when it came onto the scene with just that corporate credit card that we've kind of become well known for, we came with a little bit of a different angle than a lot of other corporate credit card providers. Many of them were competing on having higher kind of like cash back or other rewards for spend, maybe having higher limits that they're able to provide to you, able to spend at more locations, whatever it may be. Ramp saw that actually finance teams didn't want something that just gave them more money back. They actually wanted something that helped them find ways to save money rather than reward them for spending more. And that's where Ramp came on to be a differentiator in this space as a corporate credit card with controls and also intelligence to help our customers find savings opportunities. Through that, in just the last 6 years that we've been in business, since 2019, we have over 35,000 customers who have seen this vision, seen the value in Ramp, and have jumped on board, saving over $20 billion or processing $20 billion in payments annually and saving customers $1 billion since 2019. So it has proven to be a concept that resonates with our customers of instead of getting you to spend more, we actually want to help you spend less. And that's kind of what Ramp was born from and has expanded on from that. Like I said, we are not just corporate credit cards anymore. We have expanded far past that to now having your entire accounts payable and procurement processes be able to be managed in Ramp. On top of being able to book travel within Ramp, leveraging controls as well through that kind of business expense process. Then, of course, none of this would be all that valuable if we didn't have the appropriate integrations to relevant accounting systems, in this case specifically Sage Intacct. We're able to sync credit card transactions, bills, bill payments, statement payments, all these different kind of information with all of the needed coding at the transactional level or even at your invoice line level into Intacct, so that way you can have full visibility and full kind of reporting on your spending while leveraging the controls that you get from Ramp as well as the automation. And the really kind of the approach that we're taking there is that we're realizing not only with customers saving time and money utilizing Ramp cards, but we also realized that a lot of our customers and players in the market were leveraging multiple different tools to accomplish all of these different types of kind of spend management within a corporation, whether that's the corporate cards and expense management like we talked about, to our P2P processes, leveraging 3, sometimes 4 different platforms in order to accomplish all of these different things. That's additional licensing fees, that's training users on how to use each of these platforms. It's things that cost the business money through all those licensing, but also time to get their employees up to speed and to have the needed expertise to use the platforms efficiently. And also, they tend to sometimes be legacy platforms. It's just we've always been doing it this way, so this is what we're comfortable with. But some of those systems have become really outdated. Their functionality is not advanced. They're not leveraging the newer capabilities that are out there. And that's where Ramp wanted to come onto the scene to also be a consolidation play. Let you combine multiple of these tools all into one easy to use and streamlined platform. And so that's really where Ramp has positioned itself. We want to kind of be at the center and be able to integrate effectively with all of the different types of tools that we use in the business to manage our spend and even more. So like we talked about, of course, accounting ERPs are a huge component of that, making sure we have robust integrations there. But it also comes into play with HR systems. Instead of having to upload users into Ramp manually, assign who everyone's manager is, let's instead integrate to our HR platform. We have that organizational hierarchy built out, and we can leverage that information already. And whenever updates are made, whenever new employees are added, we can automatically get those input into Ramp, again, helping us to save time with the actual admin side of managing our spend. Same thing with banking information too. We want to be able to leverage all different banks. So Ramp has, of course, pre-built integrations to some of the bigger banks out there. So all you have to do is log in and you can easily utilize your banks. Or if maybe not, maybe use a small local bank, we can also, of course, just have you put in basic information like the accounting routing number and be able to use your bank effectively in Ramp. So minimizing any limitations there. And then lastly, too, our business tools are different things that we utilize to help move our business along. So whether it's integrating with Slack so you can have approvals automatically sent into your Slack account for easy access to know what you need to approve and when to approve it. Or integrating to apps like Uber or Lyft, where as I'm spending, as I'm having my Uber rides to airports, I'm able to actually have Ramp connect into my Uber app. Every time I swipe or choose a ride with Uber, it pulls the receipt out from there, matches it to my transaction, so I don't have to do any expensing. Ramp does it all for me. Same thing with utilizing email for the same reason. If I have receipts that are in my email, I can have Ramp go in and actually pull those receipts out for me. So it's not just about being an easy-to-use platform. It's also about being able to plug in effectively into a company's existing ecosystem of tools that they leverage, again, with the whole goal of helping you to save time as you're going through these different kinds of spending processes. But overall, the reason, again, that we had started with and what really differentiates Ramp from start to finish is that we are built to save our customers both time and money. Where on average, we see customers saving 5% annually when they leverage Ramp for their spend, whether that's through card controls, whether that's through our price intelligence tools to help you find better deals on your subscriptions. We help you point out ways that you can save money. And it's also about giving back time to our teams. So whether that's actually our card holders, where we save over $5,000 annually by eliminating those tedious expense reports and making it an on-the-go and seamless experience, or even a touch-free experience, to our accounting teams trying to help close month end and code all these transactions effectively, chase down receipts, and then also make sure all of our spend is within policy. Instead of having our accounting teams have to manage that themselves, let's have a platform that does that dirty work for them. And that's, again, where Ramp really comes into play. So those are the key kind of components I wanted to at least showcase in Ramp or talk about specifically, but I'd love to actually go into the product and showcase how does Ramp work? What is it going to look and feel like, and how does it help us actually either save time with better workflows or save money with different tools that we have? So the first thing that I actually want to showcase is what it looks like to expense with Ramp. If I swipe my Ramp card, what is that expensing process going to look like? So have a quick kind of showcase here. We're able to actually see on our mobile phone from start to finish what it's going to look like. So I am at a restaurant right now, or I'm spending on my Ramp card. I've got it added to my virtual card. I go ahead, I tap to pay. It comes in, and immediately once I tap to pay, I get a text from Ramp saying, hey, we got this transaction for $189. I can go ahead, click into that text. We can look here at the bottom of this most recent text that we received, and it says, awesome, we matched this to a certain virtual card in Ramp, which we'll get into in just a moment. Quickly, I can change that if needed, but otherwise, quickly just snap us a picture of your receipt, and we can finish off this process. I open up my camera right in my app. I take a picture of my seat. I can still be sitting at the restaurant table submitting a picture of this receipt. It says, awesome. It then immediately texts me saying, we've added the receipt to your transaction. We just need a memo in order to fully complete your business's expense policy. Instead of me having to type something in, Ramp's able to actually understand what this transaction is for and then tell me what some recommended memos are for that. So instead of me having to type it out, I can say, actually, reason number 2, my lunch with my team during QBRs is what this is for. I can quickly go ahead, text that in, and Ramp says, awesome, thank you for submitting that. Your expense is now complete. So that is as simple as it gets with Ramp. I send a quick picture via text. I enter in 1, 2, 3 based on the memos that Ramp provided to me, and I'm done with my expense report. No more saving receipts, no more having to set aside time at the end of the month for submitting all of my different expenses and then putting all this different information as to how much the expense was for, when it was, what the reason for it was, what projects it gets tied to. Let's let Ramp do all of that for us, and our users have a seamless experience of just quickly texting Ramp the needed information. With this, we're able to actually see over 90% of transactions be fully completed within 3 minutes of the transaction taking place. So again, helping our accounting teams not have to chase down employees for the receipts that are needed, for out-of-policy spend. we are actually able to gather that information within 3 minutes of the transaction happening, saving our team's time. So wanted to at least showcase that quick glimpse as to what it looks like within Ramp to actually submit expenses, but we also have the capability too of having zero touch expenses, right? Like I said, with those Uber integrations or email integrations, instead of Ramp texting me, it'll say, oh, okay, I'm going to go in, find that receipt via my Uber account. I'm going to pull it into Ramp and it'll do the memo for me, add the receipt, and my expense is completely done without any involvement from me. So that's where Ramp's continuing to push the envelope to actually make expensing from start to finish completely touch-free for our users. All right. So as we open up our Ramp screen, we can see just from our home screen on this left-hand side, we have our navigation tab. So just like many other products out there, right, on the left-hand side, we can see all the different tools and features available to us within Ramp, whether that's our expenses and travel to procurement capabilities, our bill pay, even our treasury tool, a high yield checking account that you can leverage within Ramp to actually gain some return on your operating cash rather than having it sit dormant in a typical bank account. So all of that fully be able to be handled in Ramp, as well as even vendor management. So all of these different tools available to you with just kind of easy clicks within Ramp. Today, we'll focus mainly on credit cards and kind of our expense management and accounting field coding. But what we can dive into first, and that I kind of alluded to on our call today, are our Ramp virtual cards. So I'm not sure if people are familiar with a virtual credit card versus a physical credit card. At Ramp, right, we offer both of them, but we like to think of them differently. Our physical card is, like you're thinking, that card that sits in our wallet and we're able to tap, swipe, insert at different point of sale systems whenever we're making payments in person. But we really think of our physical cards as kind of a vessel for spending. Where the power of Ramp comes in is actually with our virtual cards. Where virtual cards is where we're able to set up controls, spending limits, and different automations within it for different spending situations. And while users can only be distributed one physical card, they can be distributed as many virtual cards as needed. So if they want just one virtual card, they want 10, they want 50 for 50 different spending situations, they can have that all appropriately set up. And their physical card will automatically connect to the different virtual cards that they have available to them. So think of physical cards as that actual credit card, but our virtual cards, while they do have a credit card number, think of those more so as kind of like spending buckets or like budgeted allowances for different spending situations. That's how we like to kind of frame them at Ramp. But what are the different controls and automations that we have within our card? Well, let's walk through an example. Let's say, for instance, I'm creating a new virtual card for my sales team travel budget, where they're going out, maybe it's every month, every quarter, and they have a certain allowance for how much they're able to spend for their different sales meetings that they're going to have. I can say, great, I'm going to give my team a $10,000 budget. Like we said, maybe I want it to be automatically reset every month, or maybe quarterly is more effective, or even yearly for how often we want this $10,000 budget, or whatever budget I allocate, to automatically refill for my team. We can even get down to the weekly and daily, or maybe it's just a one-time expense. All different cadences to meet kind of the need of what a business may have for this spending situation. So I'm going to say they get $10,000 a month. Awesome. Now, well, I have a couple people on my sales team. How can I actually have this card shared to them? We have two different ways to do this. I can either have it so I can distribute this $10,000 budget to multiple different team members by making them owners of the card, or we can say, awesome, I want Andy, Angela, and Bill, as well as David, to be shared this virtual card, and now they all have their own $10,000 budget to spend for their different travel needs. But maybe that's not quite the way that our team structures it. We actually have this $10,000 budget for the entire team to split amongst themselves, depending on who needs to travel for different situations. So instead, what we can do in that case is I can go ahead and say, share this with other members at my company. And I can say, awesome, I want to share it with Angela, Andy, and Bill, those same team members. But now, instead, this $10,000 is split amongst them. So they all are pulling from this same $10,000 budget. So depending on how we like to structure it and how we like to distribute the cards and how the budget should actually be functioning, we can have ramp reflect that appropriately. Now that we have our basic amount, as well as our how often it resets and who the card is shared with, what are the different kind of controls that we can add to this? So I can go ahead and let's add some restrictions to where this card can actually be spent. And what we're doing here is we're actually denoting when this ramp card is utilized, where do I want it to be allowed at point of sale? So for instance, with category restrictions, we're talking about different categories of vendors. And what I can do, in this case, maybe for my sales team travel budget, I can say, okay, I want to make sure that they're only spending it at vendors that are relevant to travel. So I'm going to only allow certain categories, and I'm going to mark those categories as things like airlines, car rental, lodging, travel, miscellaneous, taxis, as well as fuel and gas, restaurant, and alcohol and bars for entertaining our clients as well. Now my ramp card is automatically programmed to only be allowed to be spent at these certain types of vendors that fall within these categories. If I have a team member who instead goes and tries to pay for Amazon on this corporate credit card, ramp will automatically deny that transaction at point of sale. So it never actually even gets into our accounting system. And then we have to go through and figure out what was in out of policy, what was relevant spend for our business. Ramp is being the bad guy for us and is making it so I know exactly what's allowed. If anything is spent outside of this, we can automatically have it declined at point of sale. Incredibly powerful, and is where ramp is going to be proactive in managing spend rather than reactive. But maybe that's a little bit too strict for us. We don't want to have our team really only be allowed to spend here. We want a little bit looser restrictions. Maybe instead of saying certain allowed categories can be spent, we only just want to block certain categories. So maybe, for instance, our sales team, once again, has been known for when they close a big deal, they like to go to the casino and try and sneak in some gambling expenses on their corporate credit card. We've caught them once or twice, but we want to stop this from happening in general. So I can make it so great. They can use this card wherever they need, but I'm going to make sure that they can't use it for vendors that are associated with gambling. So different kind of situations like that, different reasons for being able to leverage these different card controls. Again, helping to block spend at point of sale rather than retroactively reviewing and trying to decide what was relevant and not. I can also do the same kind of controls, but at the merchant level of allowing certain merchants or blocking certain merchants. We can kind of change the situation here. Maybe instead of this being my sales team travel budget, I've created a virtual card for my Microsoft Office subscription, right? We pay this subscription monthly, and I just want to give Microsoft this credit card information, and they can pay for it as needed. What I can do is set it so I've got my merchant of Microsoft set up. And now when this card is utilized, it can only be leveraged at vendors identified as Microsoft and for whatever the budgeted amount I have set up on it. Like I did for my $10,000 sales team travel budget, I can have it be for instead, my $2,000 Microsoft Office budget. That is every month, every quarter, whatever it may be. So now I'm helping to prevent any overbilling from occurring where maybe Microsoft accidentally double bills me. Maybe they increase their prices without letting us know. I'm automatically able to have this rejected and reviewed to make sure that it's actually relevant spend or we want to authorize this increase in price. But on top of it, this is also a fantastic tool for fraud prevention. Where now, since we're giving maybe this virtual card information to Microsoft, if they have a data leak or this card information happens to get out into bad players' hands, we can actually have it rejected. So anytime that person is trying to commit fraud, spend this card in any other location, it's automatically rejecting it at point of sale. So again, a huge tool that can also help us prevent fraud in those different kinds of situations. But on top of this, right, we have those cards and controls, but we also have automated kind of accounting that we can have attached to this card. So this is my sales team travel card. Awesome. I know that every single time this card is swiped, I want it tagged to my Intacct GL account of travel. Every single transaction is going to be coded that way, so I want to have Ramp automatically assign it to me like that. My department, well, this is my sales team budget, so maybe sales falls under our executive team for this situation, or if we had a sales team department, maybe we falls under marketing in this situation. I can have marketing applied correctly. Same thing with any of my different Intacct fields, as well as locations if I'm syncing at the top level to entity level. All different capabilities here where I can have transactions automatically coded for me as they occur rather than reviewing them retroactively and going transaction by transaction to fill in this information. So this helps our accounting teams, right, save time by controlling spend effectively, making sure all spend is relevant, is within policy, and I'm able to have a lot of my transactions coded for me, as well as some different advanced rules that we have too that I can quickly show. I know we're right at time, but I can go in and see all these different lightning bolts that we have here. All this is denoting to me is I've set up a rule within Ramp that if certain conditions are met, like maybe who the card user is, where the card was utilized, I can have it automatically coded to a certain GL account. I know we're at time, so I'll stop sharing my screen and open the floor to any questions, or if we need to continue moving on to our next group. But once again, appreciate the time and the patience with you all, and I hope you enjoyed getting to see a little bit of Ramp.
All right. Thank you to Nigel and Ramp there. That's going to round out every marketplace partner we have for this afternoon. Really appreciate everybody's patience. And I know it's a long haul there starting at 1 and now we're at 4:30. So wanted to bring back up the survey. So as you guys log out here, be sure to take that survey. It takes about 2 minutes, and we'll be sure to enter you for a $25 gift card. If anybody has additional questions that come up or need help with Sage Intacct or want more information on either Data Blend, Ramp, or Martis, feel free to reach out to any of us. We really appreciate everybody joining us here this afternoon, and that's a wrap for our spring Sage Intacct user group. Thanks, everybody.